Do not adjust your radio dial. You are tuned in to the Mark Order Podcast. Join the Mark Order.
You know what they say, Andy? It's too loud, you're too old. I think that's the saying.
You know, I love our new setup on StreamYard. Like when I have to do the audio when number one's not here, when Millionaire Matt's not with us, like I do the audio a different way. And it's not like a fader. Like I remember, I did college radio, so I used to, have the faders. So it's just weird. I have to do it with a mouse, and it's not an exact science. Anyway, I'm bitching. Nobody cares about it. Hey, Schlong, it's Thursday night. You know what that means. We're here live.
It means we weren't around for Wednesday.
That's right, but with good reason. We're live here with the Mark Order Podcast, episode, what is this, 26? 26, I think. Yeah, 26. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. YouTube is a game changer, Schlong. I think a lot of people out there are happy that we're on YouTube now.
I mean, I watched the Wizards Monday Night Show on YouTube, and I'm way happier about that. So,
well, we thank everybody who might be out there watching us. Again, it's Thursday, so it's a little weird that we're here on a Thursday, but for good reason, Schlong. We missed Wednesday Night Dynamite post-show because we were at Wednesday Night Dynamite Grand Slam.
We were. Now, I think everyone will obviously see we're missing two people. We left them there. We said, screw you guys. You weren't that much fun. We're going to leave you guys there and figure out your own way. And I guess they just didn't figure it out.
That's right. From what we could tell people, we can tell for sure that Matt decided to leave everything behind in New Jersey and work at one of the chop shops in Queens. So he's now working, chopping up cars and getting scrap and doing all that kind of stuff. And it turns out that Kate's experience was a little different. Kate tried to hop a fence to go see, the talent lot, right, to get through the back door, and she got arrested. So she didn't have the right credentials. We told her, don't worry about it, Kate. In due time, you'll get those credentials. But she decided to try to hop a fence, and now she's arrested. So she's not here with us tonight. Hopefully she gets out soon. But if not, I hope she links up with the right people wherever she's being sent to.
I'm thinking some of the videos we get of her trying to sneak in and then her getting arrested and then her getting beaten in jail might, if we put them on her Twitter, might get her Twitter enough followers to get her those credentials she so desperately wants.
I mean, we all know the other way to get those followers, right? I mean, we've told her time and time again, foot OnlyFans. She refuses to put her feet on OnlyFans. And I think you could, it doesn't even have to be on OnlyFans. At this point, just put it on your social and say, hey, you want to follow? Give me, I'll give you a foot pic. Give me a follow.
Or what she should do is just use other people's feet and not tell anyone.
Schlong, you think that she's a bright young lady and she would understand, you could just use other people's feet. But it is what it is. Either way. Hi, everybody out there listening.
Well, we already have some comments that I think is important for our conversation. One, we'll start with the simplest. Hey, Braden. But these are the two responses to Kate's feet things. One is Mike Pearson saying gross. Which, Mike, we're not saying it's anything.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Schlong. I want to know what part of this is gross. The feet part or the foot fetish part? Because, listen.
Or the Kate part.
Well, I would say the Kate part, but I'll tell you this: if somebody out there wanted to pay me to see my disgusting feet, I'll show you all the feet pictures you want. I'll take feet pictures from now to the cows come home.
I completely agree. I'm afraid to say that, and then Mark Order Twitter is going to get inundated with feet requests. And then there's Joe saying maybe she'll do if she can get that blue check mark. That's what we're saying, Joe. Do it for the blue, but she won't do it for the blue or the green.
That's right. We've been trying. We've been trying desperately to talk some sense into that young lady, but instead she tried to hop the fence. She got arrested, and at some point she'll come back. Mike Peterson, mostly the feet is the gross part. He says Kate is number 2. Yeah, I think she's shit too. Ha ha ha, get it? I don't think Kate's shit. We wish her the best. And hope for a speedy release. Yeah. But hopefully on good behavior.
Oh, not if she's not willing to show any feet.
Well, that's very true. Schlong. So I want to get into our first topic we want to talk about tonight is our trip that we took to Queens yesterday. And last week you got to talk to Kate and myself about the experience, because that Newark was our first experience for AEW. So for Kate, myself, and Matt, who decided to leave us this week, last week he did have work, but I want to get your take now, right? Because Kate and I got to talk a lot about how we felt, the atmosphere, the way the matches ran, the way they ran their show, their lives. So we'll talk plenty about the antics and our trip and stuff like that. But Schlong, I also want to say that was the first time we met in person. So it was fun It was fun to finally get to hang out with you face to face instead of through this camera.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy if I think about it, because I was like, wait a minute, I talk to you every week, but I never met you in person. We had a while together. We got there early. We tailgated in a parking lot that wasn't tailgating, really. Us and one other group.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say to back you up here, we were there very early, but I don't have a complaint about being early, because
not at all.
No, we actually we left where we are in New Jersey around 1:00, and for those who know the New Jersey area, it's always a crapshoot when traveling into New York, especially towards Queens. There can always be traffic on the bridges, through any tunnels. We didn't go through the tunnels, but over the bridges, and getting to Queens especially, there could always be a ton of traffic that gets you held up. The UN is also in town, so if there was any diversions, we had to kind of account for all that. So thankfully, we didn't have any of those issues, and it only took us an hour and 15 minutes to get in. We had a really quick trip, no traffic. It was awesome. So we were in the lot pretty early, and that was our goal, right, Schlong? Our goal was to be there early, to be able to hang out, relax, chat, listen to music. I got to give it to Millionaire Matt. He spared no expense. It was quite the tailgate. We didn't set the tent up. We did have a tent. I think he had the same people who tented the Giuliani wedding were set to do ours, but it was too windy, so he got his deposit back. But so Schlong, there weren't many people tailgating when we got there, but that group next to us picked up speed through the day. They definitely, it was just 5 of us hanging out. They had car after car after car pulling up. That was a large group.
Yeah, they merged at some point, because one guy was by himself and then he went over to them, and suddenly you had 2 groups forming into a group of 25 people. I will say this: if Matt ever invites anyone here, listening or whatever, if he ever invites you to go to tailgate before something, you should take him up on that. He is a professional. He does not leave anything not planned. No, I'm so glad we got there early, especially because if we're going to go into my experience of Arthur Ashe, the lines and the waiting could be the biggest thing everyone experienced. And I didn't want to have to battle to get in there with traffic, and then battle to park, and then battle to walk it. You got to limit how many of those battles you want to fight. And so getting there nice and early on a beautiful day was great. So if we're gonna go over my first AEW experience, really
Well, hold
my
on.
third wrestling. Okay.
Let's go through a little bit of kind of like the timeline, and we'll get there. We have some time. So we were there pretty early, and we actually drove by the arena, right? So we were looking. It wasn't really very clear where the parking was, so like we actually went like straight up to Billie Jean King Arena. It wasn't the Arthur Ashe, but right by the Billie Jean King like tennis, center or whatever. Um, and we actually saw where we believe it was the talent lot, right? Because there was a bunch of
Yeah.
marks standing out there waiting to get their autographs, which was, I'm joking around, but that's pretty awesome. There were people standing around trying to get some autographs. That was pretty awesome. And then when we found where we were, we set up shop. And like Schlong said, Millionaire Matt's a pro. I've done tailgates before, and I feel like I've got a hold on it. But Matt was like, "I got it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about bringing anything. I got everything taken care of." And he did. We had plenty of drinks, some great sub sandwiches, and we were just waiting for the rest of our group to arrive. So it was you, me, and Matt taking the trip together from New Jersey, and then we had the old the doctor who shall not be named join up with our group um, as the day went on, and then Kate the Great eventually showed up. She was coming from another place in New York City, so we were all sitting around hanging out, talking about what might go on in the night, right? Like maybe surprises, how things would play out. And we were constantly watching that arena roof, like maybe it's going to open, and it didn't open, but it's okay. We'll get there. So, Schlong, you need to also relate to the people um, how Matt put together our soundtrack for the day, because that was pretty impressive, and we didn't even get the whole way through it.
So Matt apparently woke up at 6:15 yesterday morning because a cat jumped on his head and he couldn't go to bed. So instead of trying to sleep, he decided he was going to put together his playlist that was all going to be wrestling related. It was anyone's theme basically in the history of wrestling. So ECW was obviously prominent because they used licensed songs. You had some of the good WWE. He had some WCW. I mean, he had everything. We didn't get through. And then of course you had some I guess New Japan, because you had some of that stuff in there. Some Johnny Gargano's indie music. He really was pulling from all over. And
He was, yeah.
I had to keep looking, like, who's this? Who's this? Because he was pulling some cuts there. So again, he's a pro. Even when it comes to making he had it in his head. This is what he was gonna do. I will say, parking $50 fucking everyone. We had to walk.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Walk a good 10 minutes, which isn't like super long, but it's long if you're charging me $50 fucking to park. Jesus Christ. Like that's
Yeah. That's New York City pricing, brother. I mean, I've definitely paid $50 to park for like Yankees games. And what are you gonna do? I mean, if you're not taking mass transit, what are you gonna do? They have you. So it was like that sucked. What sucked was the fact that that like the doctor had to drive it by himself, and he ate that $50 on his own. Jump in the car with us. We could have split it up a couple ways, and that's it. But yeah, the parking was $50. You're right, and there was a little bit of a walk, but at least what I could say is it was a nice walk, right? Like it wasn't like you were walking city blocks. You were kind of walking through, some greenery, grass and trees and stuff like that. You didn't feel like you were in the middle of a concrete jungle. And everybody was there for the same reason, right? So like, people were very excited to be there.
Oh yeah, this was a very excited crowd. Wrestling fans are very easy to spot, I've learned, and very happy when they spot each other. There was it was very much one of those almost, I want to say, like, it wasn't fraternity, but like not in the word the colleges, but like, you know what I'm saying, like a fraternity of people who knew, like,
Yeah.
you're with me in this thing. It was very interesting because again, I've been to 2 ROH shows and 1 WWF show in like 96. That was it for me. So this was the biggest experience. Real quick, Ant, do you know who this is? Ryuzuki
Uh,
Taguchi?
to 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 be honest, I don't. I've I've said it plenty of times. I'm not a huge fan of Japanese wrestling. Like I've been to a couple. I went to the New Japan show that they did with Ring of Honor at the Garden, which was great. I'm going to New Japan with you guys. I like some of the Japanese stuff, but I don't watch it all the time. Like, so when I say I'm not a fan, I mean like I'm not a fan who watches on a regular basis. Like I've
Yeah,
tried.
like me.
I just can't keep up with it. Like Matt's given me his login to NJPW to New Japan World, and he's like, you should check out the G1, and I've tried, and I don't have the time. You know what I mean? Like I just lose track of the time.
So that's kind of one of those things where like I've been to two ROH shows. I'm going to a New Japan show, but I'm mostly AEW, and that's not because I am one of these people who takes one brand and sticks with it. It's just like time. I can only dedicate so much of my life to wrestling. And so I picked my company that I enjoyed, and I was like, all right, but I'll watch the other stuff if it's good or if it pops up, or, if I get to go to it. But I was just curious because Mike Peterson said that they had a great theme, but I have no idea who it is. Mike, you're missing the best person to talk to isn't on here tonight.
Yeah, and it very well we may have heard it on that playlist, but we were bullshitting about everything during that period. So like some of it we didn't necessarily even pay attention to, but yeah, just to get back to your point, yeah, you could clearly tell who a wrestling fan is, right? And but what's cool, at least about these shows, is it's like everybody, you have way different levels, right? Like you could tell there were people who it's like, hey, I know who CM Punk and Bryan Danielson are, and that's why I'm here. And then you have the people who are wearing the fucking belts, all night and dressing up like Macho Man, WCW Macho Man, 80s Macho Man. There was a Ninja Turtle there. That's not wrestling related, but people are dressing up. It's crazy. I mean, and I have one piece of AEW merch that Millionaire Matt got me last Christmas, which is an Abaddon t-shirt, but I had worn it and not washed it, so that's why I didn't wear it. So I decided to wear my Bullet Club shirt because it's,
Most of the
related
original
enough.
Bullet Club is there.
Right. And I can't tell you, at one point I tried to run in the parking lot to use a porta potty. And I can't tell you, Ryan, that was like I was gone for 2 minutes. And and in that period of time, I can't tell you how many people like threw the Too Sweets up and were like, Bullet Club, Too Sweet. Like it was, people are into it, which is awesome. And that's not to say people who go to Ring of Honor aren't into it, because we've all been you've been to Ring of Honor shows. I've been to a bunch of Ring of Honor shows. Those fans are way into it. I think if you're a wrestling fan, you're into it and you're looking to have a good time. You're never going to like be like, I hope this is a shitty night. Like everybody's just looking to have a fun time and see some good wrestling. And I think most of the time that's what you get.
Yeah, I mean everyone's bought in on it, and in a good way. Like you said, I run a theory. Why are you spending any money to go to this thing and time if you're looking to have a bad time? Like I go to have fun. Same with ROH. I didn't know every wrestler there, but I was going to have fun because it was a good time. And really, ROH fans are AEW fans. Just there's less of them at the event. This is basically just taking those guys saying we're going to expand it out tremendously. And funny enough, like I would consider myself one of the lesser knowledgeable wrestling fans compared to most of the people that, I mean, you have like Matt sitting across from me. Matt could school me every day on who everyone is. I know AEW, but that's it for me. The one thing I said to him when we were leaving, I know you heard me, I understand owning belts. I'm not criticizing anyone who owns a belt. So I want to make that clear. Collectibles are awesome. I support everyone. Yeah.
I've got one back here.
Yeah. This is not a knock on the actual. Oh yeah, there you go. This is not a knock on the actual belt. It's bringing it to the wrestling match. And not because I think you're like, oh, look at you with the belt. Solely from that has to be so inconvenient all night. I mean, it's inconvenient just to have your normal stuff on you because you're always checking for it. You're never sitting comfortably. Those chairs were not made for, listen, I could be in amazing shape and those chairs were not made for me. Like I'm looking at Kate. Kate is not a big big person by any means. She's a small person, and she looked. I know, granted, there's big people around her, but even still, like, just the whole thing was like squashed. And I looked. There was a kid sitting in front of me from Memphis, Tennessee. He came up on his own, and he like I say, kid. He's probably 18, 19, skinny as a stick, and he was at the max capacity of that chair. Like, these were not made for it. So to have a belt then thrown on top of you, it's just like that would be so inconvenient. But teach their own. I'm never going to criticize anyone for having fun, but
it's the one thing I think Matt has said. I've said it. I think we've all are under the same agreement. It should be if you wear a belt to a goddamn wrestling event, prepare to get schoolboyed and hand over that belt, because you got to defend that title.
So I love that rule, except the one thing that worries me is, Matt, I'll be fun. It would just be a schoolboy, be over. The person wants schoolboy is back, fine. It would quickly turn into the 1998 or 99 WWF Hardcore Championship, where you'd see trash cans being lifted up and smacked into people's heads. It would turn into reckless violence very quickly.
Oh, of course.
People are insane.
But yeah, and even to that, I mean, the number of belts that we saw last night. I saw an AEW World Championship belt. I saw, which is obviously par for the course. I saw a few big gold belts. One that was sprayed NWO Black. I saw one that had a red strap and was sprayed NWO Wolfpack. I think I saw an NWA championship belt. There were a bunch of different belts there. So like, the other cool thing is that, you can see all this stuff, and Schlong, you could ask anybody to take a look at their belt or like talk to them about their belt. They'll talk to you about it. People are pretty open to wanting to talk about this stuff. And yeah, Mike Peterson, we're on the same page here. You grab the first ref, pin him, and take the belt, but then you got to run. So I'm with you there.
You gotta go. I'm fine with that. Like,
especially in Queens.
I just know the violence that other people would take it to, because people are insane. So going timeline wise now, we have a great time in the parking lot, but but you're seeing pictures on Twitter and stuff of how the lines are already. I'm like, I wanted to see elevation clearly. It's how I started on the show. It's something I do truly enjoy. So I'm like, let's go in kind of, even I heard my fucking accent that time.
Yeah,
let's go in.
It.
Yeah, that was bad. Let's go in early enough that we can all sit. No one was arguing that, because I think everyone felt the same way, like, get in, get comfortable. It wasn't actually too bad to get through the the ticket scanning and the vaccine check. They were quick.
Yeah.
It wasn't even brutal. It looked brutal at first, but it ended up being really quick to get through the security checkpoint. I thought it was going to be way worse, because it was like this looping line, but it moved. However, once you got into like we had to go upstairs. So once you got upstairs, but I'm sure downstairs was the same way, fucking chaos. I mean, those hallways are thin.
Yeah. So just to give a little context here. So like we kind of said, we had to walk from our lot over to Arthur Ashe. And what's a little not confusing, but maybe at first, like when we went by the Billie Jean King, tennis center, we thought, I think initially, hey, that's Arthur Ashe, because it was a huge arena. And then we realized, oh, that's not the entrance. Like, you have to actually continue to walk kind of around everything, and then you finally loop around to the entrance to Arthur Ashe. So as Ryan said, when you got to the actual entrance to Arthur Ashe, like the complex, because it's a complex of multiple, tennis courts, and then the main court, which is Arthur Ashe Arena, or Arthur Ashe Stadium. That first check, as you said, they were doing vaccine and negative COVID tests, as is the New York State or New York City kind of protocol. Didn't seem like when we got there were any issues. Nobody was fighting. Nobody was arguing. People were just waiting to go through. And I think maybe people were waiting for others to show up, because there was a bunch of people milling about. But man, we They asked us to show our proof of vaccination. We pulled it out. They looked. They said, "You're good to go. Scanned your ticket. You're through the gates." And then you have to get to the security check. So it was actually pretty smart the way they were doing it. You realize this isn't their first rodeo, right? Like they've done this for the tennis events, so they kind of know how to do it. And when you got through the gates and you kind of got through all the tennis stuff before you get into the arena, that's where they were doing the security. And as you said, Ryan, like those lines when we first walked in, we didn't really, I think we thought there were two different lines. Then we realized like it was one giant line that snaked around like a couple times, and then eventually you were kind of going past like some fountains and stuff, and then you got to a place where they were basically directing you, okay, your group go that way, go this way, go that way. And we actually were able to kind of go all the way to one side, and we kind of got straight through. Not that they didn't check us, but it moved. You had everything out. They wanted you. You went through a metal detector, and then you were good to go. So once you got in, right, those 2 points, perfect. But yes, I will back you up on this. The volume of people that were there, I mean, it has to be the same volume for a tennis match, right? Plus some more because they sold some extra floor seats. But, this is a different group of people, right? So I had said the same thing. When we went to Newark for the show last week, I said, our thing said, our kind of beef was like, if you wanted a drink, it took forever. We weren't sure if it was a staffing issue, if it was a technology issue, but it was really slow. Lines were long. Man, last night, it was the same thing. Lines were wrapped around the corridors for a long while. I mean, merch, I'll say this, and, back me up on this if you feel the same, Schlong. If you want merch when you go to one of these AEW shows, that's the first thing you got to do. Don't even go to your seat. Don't worry about anything else. Beer, food, whatever. Get on the merch line because the merch lines are the longest things I've seen so far.
You have to do it first, and you have to be willing to miss elevation. And this is when doors open at 5:30. You probably still might miss elevate. First of all, if you want merch, if the doors open at 5:30, be one of the first people through. Don't go after 6 because you're and at that point maybe you're lucky enough to not miss elevation, but I'm not promising it. I've never seen anything like it. And truthfully, they were the worst thing I've ever seen. Concessions were not much better for most of the night. They got a little bit better at the end when I think people had given up on trying. But Kate went out to get it like waters and soda at like elevation hadn't started yet because I know she had to literally get out of line to come back so that she could see the first match because she obviously wasn't going to miss Brian versus Omega to get us water. I mean, that's where I have to thank Cass from Body Slam. He was stayed in the line, so he got water for us, which was a lifesaver because I was dying. But I mean, you're talking over an hour of waiting in a food and drink line. I've never heard anything like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've go to a lot of hockey games and stuff, which is 20,000 people, and they all go out for food and drink at the same time because it's between periods. And I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, it was I'll say impressive, right? And that was the one thing I kind of think I said to either Matt or I don't know who I said it to at one point. I said, I wonder if they're going to be prepared for the concessions because I haven't been to a U.S. Open match. I'd like to go, and after being in that stadium last night, I certainly would love to go. It's a beautiful venue. And it's a beautiful setup, and you don't feel like you're in New York City. It's gorgeous. But I said I hope they're prepared because this crowd is definitely one that wants to drink. Well, and that's not a bad thing, but people want to buy drinks. They want to buy food. So I hope they're ready because of what I experienced in Newark. And for the most part, it seemed like they were inundated with volume. But by the end of the night, when we were kind of past Dynamite into Rampage, I said I gotta get up. I gotta stretch my legs a little bit because I was starting to lose steam, right? And I said I'm gonna run to the bathroom, take a little bit of walk. You can get some air because the breezeways gave plenty of air. I was going to grab a drink. Well, at that point, forget going to the bathroom because the bathroom line was long. And I tried to. So Schlong, what was this? It had to be like 11:15 when I tried to do this.
Yeah.
So it was pretty late, and I jumped in a line that I saw. I don't know. They were selling popcorn or something. It said popcorn and lemonade, but I saw a soda, fountain there. Well, I realized that a bunch of people weren't moving and I didn't see anybody pouring drinks. So I moved to the next station. It was some sort of grill, chicken fingers, burgers, that kind of stuff. So I'm waiting there and I just want a drink. And after about a minute or two, somebody from behind, one of the managers goes, "If you're waiting for chicken fingers, we are out. We are out of soda, out of water." Like they only had hamburgers or something at that point. So I was like, Jesus Christ. So I walked to something else and I thought it was another long concessions line. So I was about to pass it until I realized, oh, this is the merch line. So I actually was able to cut through and finally get a drink, but they were actually running out of concessions. They didn't have soda, they didn't have water, they didn't have food. And again, maybe they just weren't ready for the amount of concessions that people were going to get. But it was again impressive, and not like oh, that's impressive. I was like, that's fucking impressive that they could run out of shit.
So I was thinking about that because that was just insane to me. The only thing that could make sense is that most arenas, and so it doesn't really forgive Newark in this one, but any arena, they host multiple events per week. Arthur Ashe really doesn't. So they probably don't buy in bulk. Like, you go to a basketball arena, they're going to have a basketball game, a hockey game. So they can go out and buy enough chicken tenders for a month and they know they're going to go. Whoever probably does the buying at Arthur Ashe was like, well, I don't want to be left with anything over. So we're just going to, and had no concept that this isn't your US Open crowd that probably is not going to eat. This is the crowd that's there to be like, we're here for a lot of fun. We're here for a good time, which includes food and drink. I mean, if you ask my opinion on Arthur Ashe Stadium, I'd say the inside the bowl was amazing. The view lines were perfect for wrestling. I don't think there was a bad seat in that place. If you ask me outside the bowl, in the hallways outside, it's the worst sporting experience I've ever seen. It's just two very different. And for the reasons we just discussed, I've never been in a place where I was worried to go to the bathroom during the event because it could be a half hour before I got back. That's just nuts to me.
Again, I would bet if you went to a U.S. Open match, now maybe if it wasn't like the number 1 and number 2 player in the world, maybe it could be like that. But I guarantee you at a U.S. Open event, the lines are not like that. The breezeways and the walkways outside of the bowl likely don't feel that crowded. But you're right. Inside the bowl, inside the stadium was beautiful. So they didn't open the roof, and we were kind of saying like, man, you would think that they'd want to get like that view of like that overhead shot of the crowd in the arena. And then once you got inside, I think we all kind of realized that hey, they've got all of the speakers and the big screens were hanging from, the rafters. So if they open it up, they wouldn't be able to have that stuff hanging. So that made sense. And then Matt actually made a good point. It wasn't until after the fact we actually thought about it. It made total sense. Was if you open up the roof, there is no way to keep the sound loud. It escapes. So keeping it closed actually helped to keep it kind of loud. But yeah, it was beautiful in there. And just to kind of show what we were kind of going through yesterday. I don't know why this isn't working. Oh well. I was going to say, if you go to our Twitter, we can actually, you can actually kind of see the picture. We put a picture up of what it looked like at our seats, and as you said, Ryan, it was beautiful. Sight lines were great. Nobody when you were sitting, nobody could block your view. Unless people were kind of leaning forward or doing stuff like that, you could see everything. And I think from like
It
every seat in there.
it was perfect for wrestling, which makes sense because tennis is also on the floor. So like, it's really a tennis arena should just be set up like a smaller football arena. So I guess that makes sense. I'll be interested to see if it becomes a regular, not obviously not monthly, but like yearly event for AEW. And if it does, what changes they make next time around? Because you got to believe they'll have learned from this and be like, okay, you know, this is
Yeah.
part of it is I don't think they used the courtyard enough that we all walked through. I think they should have done security before it because I think that courtyard could have freed up a lot.
Yeah,
There's bathrooms there, you
I
had
think,
food.
yeah, which was good because you could go to the bathroom and do that kind of stuff before you actually get into the arena. But yeah, I wonder, Schlung, how much of that kind of space they weren't utilizing because of COVID and that kind of stuff. Like if they knew that they'd have the long lines and they'd need to loop people around. Either way, it didn't bug me. It personally didn't bug me enough to like put me off on this event. I would honestly say, um, if they turn this into a yearly event, I would try to go to it. It was really that well done.
Oh, I had a wonderful time. I'm not gonna. I mean, if you're asking, I had an amazing time there and I thought it was great. I'm just, if I were to give my honest opinion on things they need to work on, that would be
Sure.
the main one. It's just the inner, not the inner, the outer part of it where you walk around and get your food and concessions. The hallways. That was their downfall, and I think that could have been if I were someone who wanted to drink more, like beer or something, that would have been a very big miss in my book. Now I don't drink, so I don't. When Cass got me water, I was good for the rest of the night. I drank it in about 5 seconds, but after that, I was fine. If I was a beer drinker, that would have been a disappointment because you just couldn't do it. Apparently, though, was it next to you guys?
Yeah.
Where the guy just had his pregnant wife getting him beer all night?
That's what Matt said. I didn't really pick up on it, but yeah, there was I guess somebody with his wife or girlfriend or somebody who I guess was pregnant, and all she was doing all night was, I guess, basically getting drinks for the person she was with, maybe herself, not something non-alcoholic, but it was definitely it was crazy. The lines and the concessions and stuff like that. But other than that, it was a great night. I think we all had a great time. We noticed as soon as we walked in, the first thing that we noticed was that the ramp was LED this time, which was gorgeous. It looked beautiful. The giant screens they had hanging in the middle were absolutely beautiful. The crowd was lit up. We got to run into our pal Kevin. Kevin Schnurr was there, so we got to run into him after the show. And you met somebody sitting in front of us who traveled from, what was it, Tennessee,
Memphis,
Kentucky?
Tennessee. Yep, Memphis, Tennessee, by himself. Flew, had to go to Chicago and then here, which to me, I'm like, I had to drive 2.5 hours. I'm upset, and he's driving from Memphis, Tennessee. But that might show how big this event was to people. Like, this was one of the biggest things they'll probably ever do, just because of not just because of how many people and the location, but how many people, the location, and who just came into the company. And it was like, I don't know if you could have a more perfect alignment of things. It'd be hard because the you had Punk and Daniel Bryan and Adam Cole, and now you're in Arthur Ashe, and you have 20,000 people. Perfect.
I mean, who's Daniel Bryan?
Well, he's also Bryan Danielson. I'm gonna call him whatever he's been calling
Oh,
him.
it's
I
Bryan
don't care.
Danielson. Okay, that's
I'm not JR. I'm not on TV. I'm allowed to say what I want.
technically you are on TV.
I'm on a
You're on
screen
YouTube.
unless someone put me on. Just so Mike Peterson agrees that the ramp looked amazing on TV, and he says he can only imagine how awesome it looked in person. It was amazing. It was the first thing we noticed. At least in my opinion, was like, that's new. I hope that
Yeah.
stays every week. I don't know how hard that is for them to set up and move. It was really cool. And then, like, you had MJF's scarf on it. Yeah, the Men of the Year had a thing on it. It's kind of
Yeah.
slippery though. You notice a couple of wrestlers
It
went
did.
sliding on it.
Yeah, it did look a little slippery. So there were a few moments in the night where I was quite worried that somebody was going to bust their ass. But yeah, they did a good job. The graphics on it were pretty awesome. I don't know if you noticed, Schlong, but every time a champion came out, the belt was on that ramp. So I didn't notice it up front for Omega, but I noticed that when Britt Baker came out on the ramp, it had the women's belt, or at least like the center plate of
I
that
didn't.
belt
I wish
on
I
the
had looked
ramp.
for it.
Yeah, and also you'll see on Friday Night Rampage when the Lucha Brothers come out on the ramp was like the belts kind of stacked, almost like one in front of the other. So it looked awesome. It was awesome. Even Christian Cage, when Christian Cage came out for Rampage, the countdown happened on the ramp.
Yeah, it
Um,
was.
and I wonder too if that's because, and I noticed this again, kind of looking back. I noticed it late in the night was they didn't have the side videos screens on the stage when they came out off the ramp. So I wonder if that was in place of those. They kind of had the ramp, like the LED ramp. Uh, I I don't know. It looked awesome, and even if they don't do it all the time, if they just do it for like pay-per-views, that would be sick.
It is a really cool thing because that's the one. Like I love their setup, but it's like I can't argue WWE doesn't have some cool stuff with screens. That stuff does always kind of enhance it a little bit because you can do some cool stuff with an entrance. You can have some fun with it. So I've never seen the ramp done like that, and anything I've watched that was really cool. Um, so the whole setup was, but it was they did a really good job. I didn't notice the side screens weren't there, but I wasn't looking. But it makes sense because I think they were trying not to eliminate more seats because you did have
Yeah,
all those seats behind they couldn't use.
yeah, and that's actually something to mention too. Is I don't know if that came across on TV. Honestly, I haven't watched the show, from TV yet. I have to watch it either tomorrow or over the weekend. But the seats that they sold actually in the kind of middle tier went around everything. So it was, like normally they block off everything kind of behind, the back of the entrance, but I guess they were able to sell it in a way where that kind of center ring behind the entrance and the ramp was sold. I wonder if they tried to sell the upper deck, kind of like the section level that we were in. I wonder if they tried to sell that or if those were kind of some of the seats that they released. Maybe they didn't. But I mean, listen, it was awesome. It was honestly awesome. Mike Peterson says save the ramp for big events. Yeah, I don't debate that, Mike. I think that could be something cool to pull out every now and again. Um, or like we said, like when the setup kind of calls for it, if you're eliminating kind of like the video screens that are above the tunnels or something like that, that could be a good thing to have. But it was an awesome event, and man, we had a ton of fun. It was a late night. It was definitely. We walked out of that arena at like 12:01, and got to the car, and by like 1 o'clock we were leaving because of traffic. We kind of waited. We had a drink. We had some water just to keep ourselves awake and hydrated, and then we took off. So we got back to New Jersey close to 2 o'clock, and then Schlong hightailed it back to Philly. I had a 30-minute drive, but yeah, it was so much fun. I'd do it again in a heartbeat, and especially with our
Great
crew.
experience.
With our crew, we have a ton of fun, and I think our next show as a group is going to be New Japan, right, in October.
Yeah, that'll be a good time. The nice thing about 2300 Arena is that they're folding chairs, so we'll just auto spread them out to give us some
Oh
room
yeah,
instead of so the locked in
yeah,
chairs give the big guy some room to spread out.
yeah, yeah. We did have a plan for the way we should have sat, but it quickly fell apart.
They always do.
Uh, but I'll say this too. I had promised you guys that I was going to wear one of my fancy jackets, and we were going to put pictures up. But it was a little humid out yesterday. So I didn't feel like sweating through one of my fancy jackets. So I think Schlong, come October, it'll be nice enough to be able to rock one of my nice jackets down to the 2300 for New Japan. And then we've got our Dynamite in Long Island that we're going to be at in December. That I'll probably get to wear another fancy jacket. So don't worry, I'll get it in front of you guys. Maybe it'll have sequins, maybe it won't. I don't know.
You don't need to be one of the smelly wrestling fans because you sweated through your fancy jackets. My God, I mean, it was hot enough, and I was in a t-shirt and shorts. Not a chance in hell.
Yeah, and then there was a lot of beef in our row, just with us. So yeah, man, it was a ton of fun, and we are going to actually break down that show for everybody coming up here in a few minutes. But we wanted to talk about our experience. A ton of fun, and I think, Ryan, that we can seriously say, man, if you enjoy live wrestling, this is one of the best events you could go to right now. For your money, you are getting your money's worth. Now, not every show is going to be a 2-hour Dynamite and a 2-hour Rampage, but you're definitely getting your money's worth for your tickets. And the atmosphere is amazing. A lot of fun.
That's how I'd sell it to anyone. It's fun. If you like, I everyone was there to have a good time. I didn't hear anyone trying not to, and that I don't know how other places because I don't really go, but I've been to other sporting events, and there's plenty of sporting events where people are there to not have a good time. And I could tell you that this thing, everyone there was like, no, I paid money. I'm here. Let's chant when we should chant. Let's sing when we should sing. Let's cheer. And if I'm not doing these things, I'm not mad that you are. Like, we're all having,
right.
It was perfect. So if it's coming near you and you've been debating, spend the money, and go. And I hate to tell you, Mike Peterson, we were big beefy boys, but we were not slapping meat. It was too hot to slap meat. It was way too hot.
Yeah, I'll say this though, with the closed roof, they had the fans going. I could feel the air. I don't know about you, Schlong. You had your hat on, but I could feel the air, kind of circulating. But if you went out onto that breezeway, boy, you catch a lot of air.
Yeah, I mean, I almost think though, because of how the weather was, it probably would have been better to have it open in terms of circulation, because by the night it got cool. But I mean, I did feel the air. They did the best they could. I'm not going to criticize them for that because 20,000. Again, let's be fair here. And I'm a big beefy man. Wrestling fans are not tennis fans. We're not the average wrestling fan is not.
I mean, listen, I'm hot all the time. It could be, the middle of January in a snowstorm, and I'm like taking layers off because I'm hot. But I was comfortable, so you must run a couple extra degrees warm. But yeah, to Schlong's point, if you're looking to have fun at a wrestling event and you've been thinking about possibly checking out one of these events, I think everybody in the Mark Order is going to suggest that you try to do it. It is a good experience, and you should check it out at least once, and then do it again. We can't wait for December to roll around. Schlong, you're not going to be with us at that one, but
too far. But
we're looking forward to it. Yeah, Long Island's a little far. Even for us, it's a little far. So Schlong, moving on. I know that we're going to talk about Grand Slam, and we have a bunch of stuff to talk about. But leading into this, we had Rampage last week. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but we had our Rampage that was taped in Newark the week before. We had the Lucha Brothers against the Butcher and the Blade for the AEW tag titles. Lucha Brothers were retained. And then after that match, Private Party hit the ring to attack the champs. They took the mask off Phoenix, and then the Inner Circle, Santana and Ortiz, came out to make the save. So they were building to Rampage that is coming on Friday, where we'll see the Lucha Brothers and the Santana and Ortiz, Proud and Powerful, against the Butcher and the Blade and Private Party, essentially the Hardy family office. Anytime you put the Lucha Brothers in the ring, it's going to be a lot of fun, and the juxtaposition of the Butcher and the Blade, kind of their style of wrestling, was a lot of fun in my opinion.
Yeah, that was a great match. I mean, all four can go, building to a fun match that everyone should watch tomorrow. That's all I'll say. This Rampage match is one you should watch because it's fun and it leads to a very fun match tomorrow.
Yeah, if you didn't see it, check it out. And I think I agree with Kevin Schnurr here. And it was good seeing you last night, buddy. The Butcher and the Blade are underrated. I think it really what hurt them was Andy got hurt, right? And he had to spend some time away. But I have a feeling that they're going to become more important to this division as time rolls on. And I think they'll probably even separate themselves from the Hardy family office at some point coming up here. I think they could go on some runs if they stay healthy. Because they're so much fun to watch. They're different than every other tag team. Even the closest team I tell me if I'm crazy, Schlong. The closest team I could compare them to would be FTR, but they're not even the same type of team. Like they're their own thing, man, and they're so awesome.
The closest I could compare them to in terms of style and build would actually probably be the Men of the Year, because you have two bigger guys, Scorpio Sky, but the stylistically, they just have a unique look. They have a unique way about them. Kate had a friend with us, guy by the name of Brian, very nice guy, who's just getting into AEW. He's a WWE fan. He's just getting into AEW. So he was kind of asking like who certain people are. And he asked what the thoughts were on Butcher and Blade, because they stick out. You see them, like, holy crap, who are these guys? And my opinion on them was that they're great. I don't know if they'll ever get the belts because of how stacked the divisions. I would never say never, because right storyline. I said, but you will never. They're the perfect team in the sense that they can take a loss and you don't care, but if they could beat anyone, you'd be like, okay, that works. Like, they fit in because they are.
Yeah.
They're to me, and I don't say this insultingly, I say this as a compliment because I actually like Chaos Project, but they're your main roster Chaos Project, where they're the team that if you have them beat people, it makes sense. If you have them lose, but they matter. You just know they matter. And a team that matters can win the belts. I could be wrong, and can win the belts if you put them in the right storyline. You have the right feud, the right whatever. And with Andy being back, that is true. They have something new. And now with Bunny being used more on the women's side, which will lead us into our next one, but it kind of plays to my point here with Bunny being more important on the women's side, since she is aligned with them, that only helps them, because right. I'm of the opinion, rising tide lifts all ships. She's, the more important she is, the more important they are. Everyone's happy. And so she had a match against Anna Jay, and I'm sorry to take that from you, but it just kind of flew, and it flew nicely. But it plays into it where, so the match was fine. I mean, I give a comment. I think Anna Jay's coming back. She has good moments. She has bad moments. That's not a knock on her. When you've been out as long as she has for a serious injury, it's going to take a while for you to get back into the groove. But to me, once the Dark Order gets over their stuff, I should say, because I really hope they do when they become wrestlers. Once they get over their stuff, you're going to have the Dark Order. They have a bunch of teams they could use. And you have Butcher, Blade, and Bunny. That take the Butcher and Blade and take any of the teams on Dark Order, and you're going to have a fantastic feud. So that's kind of where I really hope this goes down the road. And that's why I kind of related the two topics together, because this match and the match before, to me, you take the Bunny, the Butcher, and the Blade, and then you take Dark Order and Anna Jay, and take Conte and Penelope Ford. You have a whole bunch of people. You take them all, and you are in for a really good time. Like those stories can intersect really well. So it was.
I agree with you 100%. I want, maybe I used the wrong phrase here. When I say the Butcher and the Blade can go on a run, I don't necessarily mean that they're going to take the belts and go on a title run. I think that they can run, like a few long storylines, right? Something of substance. They can be, a team who's a constant thorn in somebody's side. But I'm with you. They seem more important when everything's running on all cylinders with the Bunny. And you're right. Anna Jay and the Bunny had their match. Anna Jay winds up defeating the Bunny, and then after the match, Penelope Ford introduces Brass Knuckles into the mix, and they knock out Tay Conti and Anna Jay. Clearly there's an issue being built here, and that can bleed directly into setting up the Butcher and the Blade having an issue with the Dark Order. Now they're on to something completely different. It's they have a lot of different ways they can be utilized. So we look forward to seeing more from the Butcher and the Blade. they did some more. They did some promos to build a couple different matches in Rampage. We're
Real
not going to
quick,
go
I
through
don't
all
want
that. Yeah.
to. For a very quick point, it's not even a point. If anyone has time and they're just flipping around, watch the post match stuff between Penelope Ford and Tay Conte and Anna Jay, where she's trying to put on the brass knuckles. It was very clear to me she's never put on brass knuckles before because they seemed to
Oh, yeah.
confuse her for a second. And just I felt it was just really, to me, it's like a funny little moment where you're like, she gets them in her hand, she's trying to flip them around, put her hands. I'm like, oh, you've never held these before.
Yeah.
You don't know where your hand's supposed to
Yeah.
go. So that was just
Yeah.
a quick little tidbit.
They also had the segment in Rampage where Matt Hardy is really fired up about Orange Cassidy, and he shaves the fan's hair. That was seeing that live was actually really funny. And Orange Cassidy comes out to make the save, and he starts. Matt Hardy starts to threaten to delete Orange Cassidy. So at some point, I don't know why Schlong, Matt Hardy now's got a thing against hair. I think they're clearly going to have a hair versus hair match, and that's going to maybe be the end of Millionaire Matt's flowing locks.
I mean, it has to be because to me, there's a wrestling rule, and it's a rule for a reason. Is that the heel is the one who has to lose their hair? I don't like it. Like if you twist that, I'll be mad because it's worked for a reason. The funniest thing about this though was when he called the fan, who was clearly a wrestler, but they called the fan an Orange Cassidy lookalike. My guys, he was me with long hair. I am not an Orange Cassidy lookalike. No one in their right mind would ever say this skinny guy over here and this fat guy over here. Yeah, they look exactly alike. No, sorry, it's just not the truth. But I don't mind the storyline. I think it's fun. I know some people don't have it, but there needs to, with all the super serious, super badass stuff going on in AEW, you need some fun storylines, and this is a fun one where like hair is the big deal.
Yeah, we'll see how this plays out. It's just so funny because it seemed to have come up from out of nowhere for no reason.
I'm thinking it's because that Orange, like when he gets up, all likes to rub his hand through his hair. When he gets up, he flicks his hair. But I honestly don't know. I think somewhere Matt Hardy was like, I want to do a hair versus hair match, and they're like, all right, who do you do it against? Well, let's just pick Orange Cassidy. People will think it's hilarious. Okay, that works. That was
the cool guy.
He's fucking cool. I love him, but we'll see. Like I said, if he has to win, you don't break that rule. If you break that rule, I will be pissed.
Well, we'll see where that goes. And also, Schlong, we're not going to go through this line by line, but if you haven't seen in the build up to this Ruby Britt match that happened at Grand Slam, if you didn't see the promo interviews that they did in the ring on Rampage last week, and they showed a good portion of it in the Road to Dynamite this week. So you might have seen it, but if you didn't see the full thing, Ruby and Britt promo battle in the ring from last Friday, go watch that. If that's the only thing you're going to watch on Rampage, it's worth it. Just great work from both of these women to build up this match that we saw last night. I have nothing else to say about it. I thought it was a pretty flawless moment in the ring from both women.
I'm going to add nothing because there's nothing I can add. You're dead on. Great. One of the best promo battles I've seen in a while in general. They just, the right amount of insults to pure fire. It just was great. Go watch it. Even if you already have seen the match, if you didn't see this leading into it, you should at least watch it to appreciate how quickly and well they built that up.
Absolutely. It was beautiful. And then the last thing we had on Rampage was Fuego del Sol versus Miro in what you, Schlong, said was the title versus title match. And of course, Fuego does not pull this out. Miro defeats Fuego. He retains the TNT title. He wins Fuego del Sol's car, even though it's like a 1998 Toyota Tercel. Miro does take the car keys and shoves them into Fuego's mouth. And Sammy Guevara, for some reason, the best friend of this little runt, Fuego del Sol, Sammy makes the save, and he is now calling to be the next challenger for that TNT title. Now, Schlong, I kind of said this to you after we went off the air last week because I didn't want to spoil it on air. I didn't watch this on TV. It's on my DVR. I have to watch it. The Master of the Tornado DDT live did not pull that move off. Did that make it to TV?
I didn't see a botch. I saw what could have been, but if you see it from the camera angle, was a planned spot. So I'm wondering if that's what you guys saw.
I have to go back and watch. I don't
You'll
know.
have to watch it because I didn't see it. Even the master makes mistakes.
Well, from our angle in the arena, it looked like he was going for that tornado DDT and slipped, and it never happened. So I don't know, but I will tell you this: if this was the catalyst to get to Sammy versus Miro, and I don't even need Sammy to win the belt from Miro, fine. I'll sit through Fuego del Sol and suffer through that, so that we can get to Sammy and Miro and Mike Peterson.
This was about, I think, Orange Cassidy.
Yes, Mike Peterson's favorite story is the Orange Cassidy party hair thing that's happening, based on how absurd it is. It is a little absurd. It came out of nowhere, but like Ryan said, it's just fun. With all the seriousness going on, you need to have something kind of fun and not so serious happening. And I agree with that. I agree with that 100%.
But back to your point, if this gives us Sammy versus Miro, which it did, it served its purpose 100 times over, because that is a match I'm dying for. I'm hoping Miro has been on an amazing run, so it's weird for me to be like, I want Sammy to be the one, like, already. Let's say already. He's had the belt a while now, hasn't he? Do we know how long when he won it?
Honestly, Schlong, off the top of my head, I don't know. You know what? We're going to take a break here shortly so we can kind of line up the rest of the night. We'll have to look it up during our commercial. But Miro's held the belt for a while now. I remember at one point seeing a stat. I don't know if it was something they threw up on TV, but he had more title defenses than I thought he did.
He won it in May. It was a quick Google. So he won it on May 12th. So you're talking, he's held that long enough. If Sammy takes it from him,
yeah,
because it's not the end of Miro if he loses it. He can go after it again, or he can do something else. If anyone, I know you don't watch the vlogs, but the end of Sammy's vlog this week, I'm gonna spoil it for people. Sorry, but Ant won't watch it, so I have to at least tell him. Is Fuego going home and being like, well, I hope my wife's okay. I hope she's not too mad at me. I hope she doesn't yell. And he goes, my key doesn't work. He's been locked out of his house by his wife. I was like, that's a great move. So Fuego's amazing. Sammy's amazing. I am loving the idea of Sammy versus Miro. You don't listen. We're not the guys at Newark. We're not going to fight over Fuego.
No, we're not. But I don't listen. I'm not a Fuego mark. I don't get it. I'm not a fan. I don't get it. But like I said, if it's getting us to Sammy versus Miro, therefore I'll take that. And I'm with you. Like, if Sammy takes the belt off Miro, I think it was a great run out of Miro, but Miro doesn't necessarily need to give it up, right away. He can hold this belt.
This is one I don't know which way they're going, legitimately, because both make sense.
Yeah, I mean, did I ever think Miro had a shot of winning that belt in Newark? Not a chance in hell.
You mean Fuego?
Sorry, Fuego, yes. But this is what I was getting to. Do I think Sammy has a legitimate shot? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Sammy's one of their biggest baby faces. I mean, you hear the cheers when he gets called. People love him, and for good reason. He is a great professional wrestler. He can talk. He can go in the ring. He has a great style. He's a main eventer whenever they want him to be a main eventer. So, and the TNT title is considered a main event in their place. So, I'm excited.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a fun Rampage last week. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a quick hour show. And folks, we're going to take a short break because we're going to come back and talk about Grand Slam. We're going to go through the card. We're going to talk a little bit about the rankings. We're going to check up on the rankings and see if there were any shakeups prior to Grand Slam. But we want to take a short break here, Schlong, because we're part of the Shining Wizards Network. Isn't that right?
We are.
And it's such a great network. And there are so many shows that you should check out that are part of it. We want to let you know about all of them. So join us here, back here in a couple minutes. Sit tight, and we're going to take a short break and listen about all the wonderful shows that are part of the Shining Wizards Network.
Everyone knows a lot of things can change in the span of 10 years. But when it comes to professional wrestling podcasting, one thing is still guaranteed. The Shining Wizards is the only place to get all the latest wrestling news, interviews with the greatest guests, and of course, tons of laughs in discussing the world of wrestling. The show is still available on Monday nights at 7 p.m. East on rantemradio.com and Rant Entertainment Media on the TuneIn app. And it's still available on all podcasting platforms. To check us out, head over to shiningwizards.com, where it's still wrestling talk and talk about wrestling.
Because of the obvious threat to untold numbers of citizens, and because of the crisis which is even now developing, this radio station will remain on the air day and night. This station and hundreds of other radio and TV stations throughout this part of the country are pooling their resources through an emergency network hookup to keep you informed of all developments.
Horns up, everyone. When on the Shining Wizards Network, be sure every Friday to check out Radioactive Metal. Radioactive Metal is one of the longest running podcasts on the interweb. And every week we bring you a fist full of metal, including interviews with all your favorite artists, discuss all the metal news, and feature the best tunes on the air today. So grab a Lemmy, join your cool Uncle Snowy and co-host Aaron in the pit.
Your recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment broadcasting from the current to the way back. Join the impact player Phil Rea and the Portuguese Man of War Choppy for the Turnbuckle Throwbacks Wrestling Podcast. Live every week on rantemradio.com. Get all our episodes over at iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Audio Boom, Google Play, ShiningWizardsNetwork.com, and TurnbuckleThrowbacks.com.
Are you tired of being told what to think and believe by Hollywood elites and politicians who just don't care about you?
Tired of not getting the truth when you watch the news?
Tired of trying to figure out what pronoun to use?
Tired of mob mentality when all you want to do is think for yourself and make up your own mind?
That's where we come in. This is Justin
and Vince,
your hosts of Inconclusive Breakdown.
We are a weekly anti-PC podcast bringing you entertainment and current event news without any spin.
If you want to truly stay informed on what's going on in the world, then give us a listen every Sunday, anywhere you get podcasts, at least till Zuckerberg and Twitter Jack deplatform us.
And as always, we're proud members of the Shining Wizards Network.
Tired of the PC police telling you what you can and cannot say? Want a show that travels back to the 80s and 90s, where the badass hosts have beaten down cancel culture on 3 separate occasions and carried on to gloat about it? Since 2013, The Midnight Jury is that show. Travel back to the malls and arcades, pop in your VHS, and join us where the 80s and 90s return from the dead. Conan, tell them where to find us.
WLWstudios.com, home of the Midnight Jury podcast, hosted by Midnight Mike and Calvin Brody.
Also available on all major podcast platforms via the Shining Wizards Network, and join in the conversation on Twitter at Midnight Jury.
What's up, wrestling fans? You want something awesome? Check out Wrestling Night in Canada here on the Shining Wizards Network. We're 3 Canadian metalheads uniting for the love of pro wrestling. Every episode, we go over all the latest news and special events with the odd unique interview as well. So grab a cold one and check out Wrestling Night in Canada, eh?
We are back from our little break. And Schlong, I do, we don't do everything like the Shining Wizards do. You know, they come back from a commercial, and by the way, fuck the Shining Wizards. But they like to thank their Patreons. We don't have a Patreon. But I do actually want to say thank you to a few people out there. We're scrolling our ticker on the bottom, reminding you of where you can follow us. Definitely check out jointhemarkorder.com. You can go there and find all of our previous podcasts to listen back to. All your podcast platforms should have all of our old shows. So definitely check out some of the archives. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We have a Twitch we're trying to get back into. We're locked out. So eventually we'll be up streaming this on Twitch too. But give us a follow. We're adding more and more content as we're kind of getting back out into the world. If you have any questions for us that you'd like us to answer live on the podcast, you can also reach out to us on our Facebook page. Send us a message. We'll answer it here live on the show. But something else you could do is you could reach out directly to us and get some of these brand spanking new Mark Order podcast stickers. And I want to thank a few people who have done that. We've sent stickers out to Roland, Tom and Faith, Milwaukee Tom and his lovely wife Faith, David, Kyle, Matt, and Chris Butt up in Canada. So I want to thank you guys for reaching out. We sent you guys out some stickers by your request. So thank you for the support. And if you would like to get your very own stickers, you could DM us on any one of our social channels, and I'll get them right out to you. So thank you to everybody who's reached out and wants to show your support by picking up some free stickers. So Schlong, we got to do it, even though the two biggest fans of the rankings aren't with us tonight. We're just going to go quickly through the rankings here because it's pre-Grand Slam rankings. So let's go through them pretty quick. Kenny Omega is our champ. Miro is our TNT champ. Number one ranked male right now is Orange Cassidy, followed by Powerhouse Hobbs, who has a big opportunity coming up on Friday against CM Punk. John Moxley at number 3, Christian Cage at 4, and the Jungle Man, Jack Perry, is at number 5. So no changes for the men, but I think everything is kind of what it is there. Anything you want to say?
No
next one? You're dancing. No rapping.
There's no rapping, so I'm rapping in my head. But all I will say is, because I will not spoil Rampage for anyone, I don't do that. You should watch Powerhouse Hobbs versus CM Punk. You should watch every match. They're all fantastic. Yeah. They truly delivered. Rampage was not a letdown. But I think a lot of people have been waiting for Powerhouse Hobbs to have a match where you're like, this is next level for him. I feel like CM Punk gave him that match. I don't say gave him, because I think Hobbs did a lot in that match for him, so it's not like that. But just they gave him the opponent, I should say, to finally prove that like he is what everyone wanted him to be. So that's my only comment there. I wish I could rap, but I'm on 2 hours of sleep. So
yeah, we are not rapping the rankings. That's not our gimmick. So for the women,
wait, real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Joe.
Go ahead.
Joe, I just came up. Joe brought up a good point. He's curious. Well, he's actually ranked number 1, Joe, but I get what you're saying, because behind the title holder, you're 2, since he's finishing the Hardy feud. I think they don't obviously have any intention of him going. Joe Evans, by the way, I should say, they're curious what they're doing with Orange, with having him ranked number 2 since he's finishing the Hardy feud. My guess is, while they have no intention of making him champ anytime soon, clearly he's also someone who doesn't need the belt to be over. My guess is he is they don't have someone else they want to put there yet, because if you put someone there, you should expect that they should be challenging for the title. he's someone you could put there and no one's like, well, why isn't he going for the title? For whatever reason, I think he's able to skate by and people don't wonder why he's not going for it. They could see he has lots of wins. He's been in a title match before, so no one questions that. But no one also is like, well, why isn't he challenging? I think people just kind of understand that's just not who he is right now. I could be completely wrong, but I try to apply logic to these things and that kind of works for me.
Yeah, and the only thing when you actually look at the rankings, the only thing that doesn't make sense from a win-loss perspective is Christian Cage, right? Christian Cage is 7-1 in AEW. Everybody else, from a numbers perspective, kind of makes sense. Orange Cassidy is 16-1-1. Hobbs is 16-2, so they're 1-2. That kind of makes sense. John Moxley's 13-2. Jungle Boy's 13-2. The only difference is that Christian Cage is 4 and Jungle Boy is 5. So that's the only weird thing with that. Everything else from a numbers perspective makes sense, but it is what it is. I would love for them in 2022 to give a little more depth to these rankings, but wishful thinking at this point. For the women, Britt Baker is our champion, and remember, Britt Baker is our champion as of yesterday, right? These are the rankings for the 22nd. Ruby Riott is number 1, followed by Thunder Rosa, Jade Cargill. I'm sorry, this name always gets me. Hikaru Shida is number 4.
Oh, you need to watch more Elevation in Dark. She's on that.
Oh, I might fall asleep when she hits the screen. That's why. And then number 5 is Tay Conti. Now, for the women, again, we know why Ruby Soho, is number 1 because she earned that shot. The women's rankings are a little more of a question for me because numbers-wise, they don't make sense, right? Like Thunder Rosa is 2, but again, Ruby Soho earned that number 1 kind of spot by earning her title. Rosa's 27-2, Jade's 14-0, and I love Jade. Shut the fuck up. But she's 14-0. And then Shida's 15-1. And Tay Conti's 26-4. Again, I know these are heat secret charts, right? But based on the numbers, there's just so many questions.
So I'm going to not comment much on this because I have one of the news stories that we'll talk about relates to the women. I mean, at least it's one I want to cover. So it kind of would tie into my opinion on how you fix something like this. But I agree with you. They're all over the place. Real quick, I want to answer something Joe said because it has been brought up by other people. And why isn't Miro ranked as the TNT champion? Or do they need rankings for that title too? TNT in their minds is on par with the World Heavyweight. It's not a mid-card title. It's the same. TNT is an open title, so they don't really have rankings for the TNT title because anyone can challenge for it. That's the rule of that title. Their goal, I think, at least so far, and if they stick with this, I will love them to death, is that whoever holds the TNT title is, in their mind, viewed as highest AEW champion and will not ask to challenge for that championship. Like, they view it as equals and separate. So I think they put him up there to totally remove him from that conversation, because one thing that'll kill to me a secondary belt is when that secondary belt guy tries to go for the main belt, the championship belt, because then all of a sudden it's like then where one is valued over the other. And it kills it for me. So I just wanted to cover that real quick.
No, that's perfectly fine. And even when you look at the way that they set up their rankings, Miro is up there on the same level as Kenny Omega. They're right side by side. So that's why he's not included in the rankings. You're exactly right. So moving on to the tag team division, our champions are the Lucha Brothers. Number 1, the Young Bucks. Number 2, Jurassic Express. 3, FTR. 4, Bang Bang. It's the Gun Club, baby. And number 5, Private Party. So again, there are some questions here when you look at the win-loss records here, right? There's some questions, but listen, this tag division right now, I think they're trying to reset after the Lucha Brothers just took the titles, right? So I think you have to kind of reset and figure out where people are going to kind of slot in. I don't really have a clear next challenger for those belts. Like, we know that there's a big match happening at Rampage, right? But there's no belt on the line. And we know that there's a couple different teams who are kind of gunning for them, but I don't know if there's a clear picture yet on who the next challengers are. And to be honest, that's fine. Like, I'd like to see the Lucha Brothers go against just about anybody. So it'll be interesting to see who's next, because I honestly couldn't tell you, Schlong.
I'm with you. That's a division. I think actually, to me, of all the divisions, that is the one where the rankings matter the least amount to me, because they have so many teams that you just know are good, that you're like, you don't need to tell me where you view them because they're awesome. Like, team after team after team of stacked. They have such a good tag division. Because you know that doesn't have Santana and Ortiz, that doesn't have Bear Country, that doesn't have, you know, the Acclaimed or the Varsity Blondes, or all these teams that easily could go in there and be like a team that's over and getting a lot of attention. So I it's the one of all of them, believe it or not, that's the one I care the least about, because it just doesn't matter to me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm least worried about the tag division out of everything, and even the men's division, right? Like, there are clear pictures on ways they can go with the men's division. It's the women's division, I think, that we always are a little questioning. You know, there's a lot of questions around. But Schlong, let's get into the events of last night. Now, I'm going to say this: we're going to go through what happened. We're going to give our commentary on the matches themselves. We'll run down the other stuff that kind of happened in the episode that we might have been hearing in the arena, but we clearly can't hear any commentary or anything like that. Nobody who's on tonight watched it on TV yet. So we'll take you through our perspective there, the live crowd. I don't know about you. I'm going to go back and watch the show for sure, because everything I heard from Mrs. Money to some other people in the Discord, the Shining Wizards Discord, by the way, we're in there. We're hanging out all the time. Join it. Everybody said it looked and sounded amazing on TV. And I can assure you that it looked and sounded amazing from inside the venue.
So I've seen two things real quick on TV, and that I can talk about, because I made sure it's the first match we're going to talk about, and it's the first promo we're going to talk about. I got those two on TV because that's as far as I could get. So I just wanted to, before we get into them, know that that's where my experience is.
You got it. So here we go. Let's get right into Grand Slam. The first thing of the night we get was the American Dragon, Ryan Danielson. That's what I was going to say. And Kenny Omega. Now, I'll say this for everybody who saw this on TV. We were talking about it in the parking lot. There was a chance that nobody knew any spoilers, you know. Nobody had been looking up anything. Nobody had heard anything from any insiders. But we had been talking about the possibility of them opening with this match. And it could go this way. It could not go this way. We were talking about the facts that there might be some surprises and things like that. And we kind of thought this could open the show, but I don't think we all actually thought it was going to happen. So, Schlong, I don't know about you, but I was watching the screens after the intro. You know, they do the big intro, the pyro goes off. You know, you can't hear commentary clearly because they're talking, and we can't hear it over the speakers. I don't know about you, but I turned around to watch the TV screen that was the TV feed and had all the overlays on it. And I'm looking at every card that's passing. You know, we're going to get this tonight. We're going to get this tonight. And I'm looking to see what they're going to say is coming up next. As soon as that little card showed up in the bottom corner of the screen that said, up next, Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega, that house exploded. I don't think anybody thought that was happening.
So I wasn't watching the screen at that point because I wasn't leaving the seat. So I was like, I'm just going to be surprised. I knew immediately based on the noise what they had in it, what was coming up, because the place just blew up. I've never heard a reaction for literally just anticipation.
Yeah.
Just so loud. So yeah, I didn't know. I wasn't looking, but you're not wrong at all. I was like, what happened? And I guess whoever the person, the card came up. I'm like, oh, well, there you go. Here we go.
Yeah. And I was in the seat. I just literally turned around to look at the closest monitor to us, like behind us, because I could see across from us, obviously, but I wanted to be sure what I was looking at. So it was just amazing. The pop that went up just at the fact they put the graphic on the screen, and then Danielson's music hits, and everybody loses their fucking minds. And then Kenny Omega's music hits, and people are losing their fucking minds. I mean, the first thing that happens is they do the announcements, they ring the bell, and both men are just standing there kind of soaking in the moment. And I can tell you, it was electric in that moment. And I know that's such like a cliche to say the feelings in the air is like electric, but it was. It was absolutely, you could feel the excitement and the tension of what was about to go down from every person in that arena. It was amazing.
I don't know if I've ever experienced anything like that in anything I've ever watched, been to. Literally, it was a mix of, again, anticipation, excitement, disbelief that this was actually happening. You know, there was just this whole moment, and then they were getting a "This is awesome" chant, and they hadn't even touched.
Right.
Like that's for people wondering on TV, because I listen, and it did come across loud on TV. Like they didn't miss the audience at all. Like you heard it. If you're wondering, was it as loud in the place as it came across on TV? Because sometimes I actually don't know if it was it might have been quieter on TV. You know, there are parts that I think they probably sound louder on TV, like later in the night. But at that point, I couldn't hear anything. It was just yelling, cheering. Yes, this is awesome. Like it was the loudest I've ever heard a building ever.
Yeah, it was impressive.
I don't. If a building's been louder, it's because the acoustics were better. Has nothing, like there was literally not one person who was there who wasn't making some form of noise. And I'm not a loud audience member. I tend to just watch and let it come to me. I'm clapping. I'm in on it. Like there was, gee, I mean, I'm getting like chills thinking about, like, I've never experienced anything like that, and they hadn't even touched. I honestly, this is, and we can laugh at this based on the match we saw, but in my head, I'm thinking, because I'm hearing these chants, I'm hearing this awesome. In my head, I go, because I'm, I guess, a little bit of whatever. I go, what if it sucks? Now, clearly,
right.
It did not.
No. So we're not going to go through this line by line, but what I can tell you is this. And I think we all said it. Millionaire Matt said that this may have been the best match the greatest match he's ever seen live. I can without a doubt tell you this was the greatest match I've ever seen live. I can't think of anything else that I might have seen that had this type of atmosphere, this caliber of talent. And I've seen some good shows, but this was up there. I think all of us did the same thing. Like we just witnessed the greatest match we may ever see, you know, and of course there are other opportunities for things to come around, but this was certainly the greatest thing to date that I've ever seen live.
I would put out there, I would posit that no matter who you are in the history of the sport, not that this is the greatest match you've seen, but I don't know if there's ever been a match that had more expectations that lived up to them. Exactly. Like people wanted a classic, and they got a classic. Like that could have, the expectations were so high, it could have been so easy to miss them, and they didn't. They, like, I don't know how, like, and I actually don't think we should. You said we're not going to go line by line, and we shouldn't, because I don't think we would do it justice. They told a story.
Right.
It started slow. They built up to it, and then all of a sudden, like, they would ramp it up to 100 miles per hour, and then they'd slow it down again. And it's like however they plan that out. I don't know who had more input. I'm not putting one guy over the other or anything like that. I'm just saying whoever's idea with the plan of that match, fucking genius. If it's the two of them, they should plan everyone's matches. Jesus Christ.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. I'll call out a couple things here. Trading chops throughout that match. You could see, without even looking at the screens in our seats, you could see how red both of their chests are, especially Danielson. So that was something that you didn't even need to look at a screen for. You could see it. That was impressive. The other thing that I'd like to call out that maybe wasn't getting a lot of play on television was how great Don Callis was playing into the fans. He was great jawing at the fans who were ringside, staring at them, kind of needling them. It was just such a perfect thing for him to be doing. The other thing is some of the bumps that Danielson took, we all could not believe with his neck, the bumps that he was taking. The dragon suplex on the ramp, the V-trigger he took Kenny running down the entire ramp into the ropes. Numerous triggers that looked super violent. That Frankensteiner, well, not a Frankensteiner, I'm sorry, a dragon suplex off the top rope that, clearly he got a flipped for, but, we couldn't believe some of those bumps. And also some of the moves that he was pulling out of, his repertoire, Danielson. We saw the suicide dive, we saw the quote unquote yes kicks. I don't know what they're calling them now, but I don't believe they're the yes kicks anymore. We saw cattle mutilation, right? I think that was the move. Brian Danielson has the cattle mutilation in, and Kenny gets to the ropes. We get
his reversal of the one-winged angel.
Bomb. That's right, the reversal, but he also gets a regal plex in. I mean, my goodness, he was pulling out quite the offense. Just what a crazy match. Kenny goes for the Phoenix Splash, doesn't hit it, but he goes for it. I mean, I don't know the last time I saw that happen. Kenny hasn't pulled that one out, I don't think, in AEW, maybe one other time. But man, the other thing that was great, and again, I'm kind of all over the place because this was just so amazing. We have to call it out, Schlong, the constant "you're gonna get your fucking head kicked in" chants from the crowd, just numerous times. I mean, it was amazing. And when we're sitting there just going, wait a minute, how long have these guys been fucking wrestling? And you get the 5-minute warning, and we all were just kind of like, holy shit. And the constant kind of false finishes, the 2 counts, and eventually trading headbutts, dragon kicks, Kenny chopping, and then you get the bell for a time limit draw. I'm going to do it, Schlong. Chef's kiss. I thought it was beautiful, man. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Now, sticking just to the match, because there's clearly stuff we're going to get to after the match. Sticking just to the match, Schlong, I didn't care about that time limit draw. I know there were a lot of people who were upset, and it seemed like some of the chatter was that people felt like getting there is getting cheated. I had no issue with the way they played this match out because of the type of match that they had, and because you could clearly tell they were going all out. They weren't holding anything back. And you go to a draw, why would, that's fine for me.
Here's the thing. They've used the draw real quick. I want to get into a lot, and I want to acknowledge, but I will forget this. It felt like an NJPW match. I would say it felt better than an NJPW match. I think they worked at even some of the. I think they worked that style into some of the stuff that happens more over here, and it was just perfect. But the draw thing, there's only been one other draw that I can remember in AEW. It was Cody versus Darby Allin. So it's not a crutch they use. If it was a crutch, if this had been like the 10th one, I'd be furious. As the second one in this fucking story, where the story is who's the best at this, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Because all it is going to set up another match, and you will have a clean winner at the end of that match. And that's going to be perfect because it's going to set up that 30 minutes wasn't enough for us. Or 30, right. Or these conditions weren't enough. Like, there's going to be something. I have absolutely zero problem with the draw. I think it was a brilliant decision. It was one that I think Kate, of all people, might have mentioned. I say of all people, but I don't want to insult her when she's not here. That's not as fun.
Yeah, she's in prison.
It's something, yeah. And besides, she has, I will be sincere for a second, she has really good opinions, and she called this. She said it could be a draw. and she was on. I mean, she saw it because of the story they can tell, and they can tell 1,000 stories coming out of this, and it doesn't hurt anything going forward. I watched this on TV, so there's a couple things I want to note because it's important. So the picture-in-picture spot was when Brian looked like he was going to get counted out, and Kenny sat out, like kind of cut the count off. That was the picture-in-picture, which I actually think is genius because it kind of downplays the importance of that moment, which is smart based on the story they're telling. But he still got his heel moment there. It played just as well on TV as it did. Like there's the crowd is so picked up so well during all of this. I'm almost at a loss for words because anything I say, because I am not nearly the guy who can, give you good detailed responses to a wrestling match. Like I can't pull, I'm not going to be able to pull it apart and tell you all the cool stuff. I can't name moves. I can just tell you from a storytelling perspective, because that's how I enjoy my wrestling matches. What's the story you're telling me? They fucking told an amazing story. Like you saw the soaking in the fans and testing each other out, then ramping it up, then just violence, Kenny snapping, then Bryan Danielson snapping, then they just couldn't finish each other. But to your point about some of the moves Danielson took and then did, I was listening to friend of Kate's, who I do actually enjoy. It's the Distraction podcast. They're good guys over there. It's Jeremy Lambert and Joe. I forget his last name, but they made a good point. This match, not just the opponent, but the style is part of the reason Brian wanted to leave WWE. When he got labeled as injury prone, had these problems, they got very protective of the kind of stuff he was allowed to do. And it was very different from the stuff that he was able to do and used to do. So now you're going to see, for better or worse, obviously this is better, but if he gets hurt, it's worse. But for better or worse, this is the style he wants to wrestle. It's a little crazier, a little more, not so insane, but he just likes to have do cool moves, and he can do them. He's as good as anyone in the world at it.
It's also a more skilled, powerful, violent moveset, right? Like, some of the cattle mutilation, like that is an awesome looking fucking hold.
His name as the American Dragon does not fit who the character in WWE was. And I loved the WWE character, but they don't fit the same person, because they're just, WWE was the underdog, the yes guy, the just give me a chance and I can make this work guy. The American Dragon is the violent, I'm the best at this, so I'm going to hurt you wrestling. Right. And that is perfect for this. Oh, so much fun. And Joe Evans has a comment real quick.
Yeah, just to your point about pulling out moves, and they got really protective over in the E. He was very open actually about that in the All Out media scrum afterwards. He said, listen, I loved my time there. I love Vince. He was very, very good. And we'll talk a little bit about his, WWE praise a little bit later. But he was very open about the fact. He said that, Vince is very protective of me. And, I wasn't able to do some of the things that I wanted to do. And that he was clearly talking about physically. And we saw right away the fucking gates are wide open for him to do whatever he feels comfortable doing. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What did Joe have to say?
No, but actually, it feeds perfectly into what you were saying. So he said the match was great pacing and left plenty of meat on the bone for a decisive finish when a title's on the line. Everyone, Matt and the doctor shall not be named Kate, we all agreed same thing. Like that is the next step. And he liked the fact that Brian pulled out some moves we haven't seen from him in a long while, which fits again. You have a theory.
No, I was gonna. It wasn't a theory. I was going to just say that I am in 100% agreement. I think that there is a lot left here. I feel like if you feel like you got cheated, that there wasn't a clear winner, you have to start thinking in longer terms, right? Like this isn't the way that things are done in the E, right? The E tends to do a really short build and a blow off, and then it's like ages and ages of rematches. We don't get that here. They think in It's clear that they think in terms of long-term storytelling. And I like that. I don't have to be, I don't have the YouTube like attention span, right? I'm not like scrolling through content like it's TikTok and I need something given to me and then I'm on to the next shit. I prefer these long-term stories. And Ryan, as you said, like you have a theory. I did have a theory. And I think the only place you wind up from here, especially because today Kenny's tweeting out, no rematch, ain't gonna happen, nada, and I think that was like a Rocky quote. I think he was playing off Rocky 2 or something like that.
It was Apollo.
Yeah. Um, uh, I think the only place this ends up is a 60-minute Iron Man to see who the superior wrestler is. And I don't even care. That doesn't have to be for the belt.
I think it should be, but only for one reason. Biggest complaint a lot of people have about WWE is the constant rematches, and especially like somebody beats the champion, so then they get to face the champion for the title, or they keep losing to somebody or to the champion, but then they get to beat them anyway. Like that stuff's annoying. They protected that here. They're gonna have a rematch, but nobody won. It's the reason you would have a rematch is that you didn't have a winner. Wrestling doesn't have a scorecard, so this would be the same as having a split decision. You couldn't clearly say who won this match. So you have to have a rematch. It's not 50-50 booking. It's not anything like that. It's the one reason you would have a rematch. And if you give me an Iron Man match, an hour, it could be, I think you guys said Rampage would be a great example. All of Rampage, making it one of the live Rampages. Give it all. I've only seen one. I've seen others, but I've only remember a couple Iron Man matches, but the first one I ever saw was 60 minutes, Britt and Schlong, and it's probably still my favorite match of all time. These two can give you a legendary Iron Man match, and they can make it look different than anything that's ever happened. So they're going to have to do something like that. I don't think anyone should. I get why people were so used to finishes and what the hell's going on. I agree with you. People are used to quick winner, loser, move on to next feud, winner, loser, move, and then this guy doesn't, very short-term booking. This is long-term, and it's also, you don't have to have a winner, loser if you know you're having a rematch. That's the whole point. And you didn't have to do a dirty finish. You didn't have to do a disqualification or anything like that. You did a clean end in the sense that just they couldn't finish it. They needed more than 30 minutes.
Yeah, and there was a lot of fantasy kind of booking around this, right? It was, well, what if somebody gets involved and then Hangman shows back up to show he's back? And listen, I think we all kind of wanted that, but after getting what we got, Schlong, do you care that Hangman didn't show back up?
No,
absolutely.
Well, first of all, I knew the minute when they opened the match that wasn't happening. When they opened the
of course,
the Dynamite, but also no, you give me that level. When you don't give me shenanigans and you give me this match, then I am thrilled with what I got. I will not complain. I would be a little pissed off if we got shenanigans and you didn't give me something like that, because then it's like, what are we doing? But you didn't. They literally did it perfect. I will not complain, even though there was the aftermatch stuff was fine. Like I'm loving it.
Yeah, and I want to back. So two things I just want to backtrack for a second. One is the fact that it wasn't dirty. There was no outside involvement. We didn't get the Elite to show up and get involved in any way during the match. We didn't have Don Callis get involved anyway during the match. And there were a few points where I was like, oh, he's going to take his ruby red shoe to Daniel, Bryan Danielson. He didn't. He was close, but he didn't get there. That was perfect. It was how it needed to be. The other thing too, Schlong, is I believe you're correct. There has been one other time limit draw, and that was very early on. It was, I think, Cody and Darby, right? I think that was the one. They have done not Cody, I'm sorry. Orange Cassidy has a 1 in the tie column, and that's because if you remember the end of that match with Pac got accelerated and then they did the double count out because of the injury that happened during that match. So it's something that even in those cases they don't do very often. They don't do a double count out to a draw. They don't do anything like that. So it was beautiful. Post match, is when we see the Elite do a run-in to check on Kenny Omega. Clearly now Kenny Omega after this match and Danielson are still trying to go at each other. There's a pull apart. They're spent. Kenny's in one corner, kind of trying to rest up a little bit. Danielson's in one corner, trying to kind of catch his breath. And the Elite comes out. The Super Click is checking on Kenny, and eventually they get up, go over to Bryan Danielson, and they get a super kick party on the American Dragon. And that's when Jurassic Express and Christian Cage come in to make the save and run everybody off. And clearly we're building to their Rampage match that's happening this Friday, where you'll get the Super Click versus Jurassic Express and Christian Cage. They went to a break at that point, but Schlong, what better way to open your show and pop your viewership right off the bat? You couldn't do anything better.
The only thing I'm going to say, and we said it last night, is that there was one downside to it. I think we're going to talk about the CM Punk promo next. That still rode a high because he's CM Punk, and people were excited to see him. There was a lull because the show started. The first 45 minutes of this show were so fucking hot that people had your adrenaline spiked so high. You had to have a come down. It's just natural, you know. That's why they have those matches. That's why they had the big show in All Out, or Paul White. But still, I mean, we'll talk about the rest because I still really enjoyed the rest. But yeah, if all you saw was the first 45 minutes of this show, you would want to watch every week, no doubt. Like, it's the best way to sell this.
Absolutely. And you're right. We'll talk about it as the night goes on, but they open the show so high. It's hard to continue to ride that wave, right? Like, where do you go from there? And it's funny because Punk is the next thing to happen. He does his address to the crowd about his match against Will Hobbs, and he even comes out and the first thing he says is, "How the fuck do you follow that up?" You know, basically. He's like, "I'm glad I don't have to wrestle now because how do you follow up, you know, the Dragon and Kenny Omega?" Which is absolutely true. But CM Punk's able to do it. He talks about it's been a long time. He's been in New York City, and longer since pro wrestling has been in New York City. And people are telling him he needs to be pissed off. They want the old CM Punk, and eventually we'll get to see him. But be careful what you wish for. He calls out Team Taz, saying that he tried to walk down the aisle and mean mug, but he hears the crowd and sees how happy they are, and then he can't help but cracking a smile. And what does he have to be mad about? You know, except when he starts to think about it, he got tricked by Team Taz. They jumped him, tried to put him through a table, and it pissed him off, and he's mad about it. But when the music hits and he steps out on the stage, he can't help but feel how good it is. And then that pissed off feeling goes away, and he's happy to see the fans. Of course, he thinks what Team Taz did was try to take everything away from him. And it's been so long since he had this, and he needs it. He gets pissed off because nobody's going to take this away from him. Not now that it's his once again. And he says that at Rampage Grand Slam, Hobbs is going to sleep. And they go to break after that promo. Schlong, again, it was live in that crowd. It was a fire promo. Everybody was listening to every word Punk had to say. And I thought he delivered a great promo to build to the match that everybody's going to get to see on Friday against Hobbs.
I can't argue. It was perfect. He added fire to his character, which people aren't wrong. He needed a little bit of that just because it's wrestling. You need to have some fire. But logical. You know, you're out here trying to ruin my good time is a great fucking story. Like, that is that would piss me off. If I was there last night and someone was trying to ruin my good time, I would want to hurt them. Like, that's human nature. So it was perfect. And him basically saying to people, like, don't worry, this will, I'll say don't worry because no one's upset, but basically saying, like, my character will grow again. I will do other things, but it's still very new and the fans love him. It was a perfect, he gets the thing I like about Punk, like, he had to yell last night because of the noise of the crowd. He had no choice. If you were delivering a promo at that point, you had to yell. but he's still even yelling, talks so naturally. And that's my favorite kind of promo, is the guy who just sounds like he's talking to you. He's amazing. I'm guessing though someone talked to him and said, please stop jumping into the crowd because you're going to get hurt.
Well, I don't doubt that, but I also don't know if there was a place for him to try to do that yesterday. Just with the setup, it looked like the ramp and the barricades were a little further away than normal because of the way
they did that for him. Let's spread this out so he can't do it, because it takes one group to not catch him properly, and this run stops.
Sure,
but
and he's done.
That was a great promo. He delivers some of, he's made his name being a promo guy. Yes, he has great matches, but it's what he does when he talks to you. And it kept the crowd on the high, but he was literally the only person who I thought could directly follow that match, because he's the only person who would get cheers. Like, he was that, people want to hear him talk. So that was awesome. It was a great promo.
Good promo. I can't wait to watch that one on TV. And then we go to our kind of first cooler match of the night. It's MJF versus Brian Pillman Jr. Listen, the crowd was clearly spent after that first match of the night. Personally, I just don't think that this story had much behind it except for MJF, in Cincinnati going after Brian Pillman Jr., where most of the crowd is going to be behind Brian Pillman Jr., but it's hard in New York City to, get the hometown crowd behind a guy who's not from New York City. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I think most of the crowd was against MJF because he is such a heel. But I'll say it. I'll say it, Schlong. I was not super into this match. MJF does get the win by submission with Salt to the Earth, and no shenanigans after the fact. He is, during the match, kind of going, kind of trying to, I guess, get Julia to kind of play into him or give him a kiss or something. I don't remember. But, Julia tries to slap him, and Julia's getting a little involved, just being there on the sidelines. It is what it is, and it's kind of disappointing because I like Brian Pillman Jr. and his wonderful head of hair. But I just feel like lately, Schlong, Pillman's been really inconsistent. I've seen some stuff that he's done that I think looks great and that I love. But lately, it just seems his performance has been a little inconsistent. I feel like his feet are stuck in the sand. You know what I mean? I feel like he's moving a little slower. I just can't put my finger on. I just didn't love this match, and I wasn't super invested in it. And maybe it's because I was spent from the first match, but I'll have to see it on TV. I didn't love it.
This was a fucking death spot if I've ever seen one. Jesus Christ, this thing was dead before it started. There's just no way it couldn't be. You could do no other match. MJF did get boos, got a shit ton of them. And I as we were starting is when this match came up on my screen, so I turned it off, and the boos did translate through. MJF works a slower style. Brian Pillman works a slower style, surprisingly. Like you said, he does seem a step slower. I don't know if maybe he's hurt, something's wrong with him. I'm never going to speculate on that. He does seem a step slower, or maybe he couldn't feel like he could get comfortable with MJF. Maybe their styles were clashing, and I didn't hate the match. I feel like I was spent at this point, because I knew the outcome. I don't want Brian Pillman Jr. on a singles run personally. I like him with Griff Garrison as part of Varsity Blondes, which truthfully they're already back together. They're already put into their own storyline again. So this is clearly just a one and off experiment. Yeah, I don't have much more to say other than that, because it's not a memorable match. It was designed, I think, for this reason. I think they knew that this was, don't put something in here that has long-term repercussions, because you are putting it in a death spot that cannot possibly survive.
Yeah, and Joe Evans, I don't have to pull it up, Schlong, but Joe Evans did, kind of ask that question you answered. He asked it right after you answered. Should they focus on Pillman and Garrison as a tag team? I'm with you. I would rather see them kind of build the Varsity Blondes than kind of give Pillman Jr. a singles run, or even Griff Garrison a singles run. I'd rather see them together.
So I will say this because it's not spoiling anything for Rampage because it wasn't on TV, but it is on the social media, so you can find it on their social media. In between the two tapings, Tony Khan came out. No, well, sorry, the Acclaimed came out and did their rap, and they're awesome, and they got their boos, and they were really good, and I love them. They're one of my favorite teams. So Tony Khan came out to respond. Clearly, he can't rap, so he brought out Lil Uzi Vert, but Uzi didn't rap. He just wrote the raps for Tony, and then Tony rapped at them. But the end of the rap was, "You're gonna feud with the Varsity Blondes," basically, and you're gonna deal with them. Not feud, but you're gonna deal with them. And then the Blondes came out and attacked the Acclaimed. Clearly, that's back on because that was the feud they were having before the suspension. So they are focusing back on them as a team, which is smart. There's no room for either one of them in the singles department right now. I know the tag team division is crowded too, but they were getting over as a team. They weren't as singles. So let them feud with the Acclaimed. Both teams are amazing. It seems like they are just, all right, this is going to be our focus again. And then Pillman might not look as slow to you if he's working with the tag partner because Griff can move a little bit. So maybe that, the clash of styles will work there.
Yeah, and I do have to say, since you brought up the thing that happened with Tony Khan and Lil Uzi Vert last night, the weirdest part about that, he's like, here's Lil Uzi Vert. And, like, everybody's like, okay, he's going to drop something, and he didn't say one word. And Tony Khan's rap, I don't know. I saw that. I think it was online. But if the rap is online that Tony Khan did, it was very much like 80s rap. It was like, I'm Tony Khan, and I'm here to say I like watching wrestling every day. You know what I mean? Like, it was...
Well, I just think because
really
they knew Tony
corny.
couldn't do anything with real pace. Though he did threaten to suspend them for another 30 days.
Yes, and he did come back out before Rampage taped and was like, by the way, I'm not suspending because I don't want people going to clickbait websites. I'm not suspending the Acclaim for 30 days. It was a joke. That was super fun.
I appreciate that. So Joe, yeah, they are going to focus on them as a team again.
And Joe's asking if the tag team division crowded, if only there was a way to have teams of 3 be champions. I think we're all in agreement we'd love to see trios belts, and I think that at some point we'll get there, but I don't think that's on the table now. We'll talk a little bit about that later. So after MJF and Brian Pillman, we do get Jericho and Hager interview backstage, and Hager calls the men of the year the boys of the week, says they're about to be spanked because they followed a fat-faced dipshit. And then Jericho says that they made a mistake challenging the Inner Circle in New York City because Big Hoss and Le Champion are the hardest hitting team in AEW. And if Dan Lambert sticks his nose in their business again, he's going to bite his nose off like Haku in Japan and spit it to the crowd. Haku. And as far as American Top Team goes, they are ready to snack on some MMA meatheads, so bring it on. So clearly, building to their match at Rampage, exactly what you'd expect out of MJF, Jericho, and Jake Hager. I was going to say Hager, and I don't know why it came out MJF, but I think just what you'd expect out of these two. I have nothing really more to say on that because we only saw it on the screens there. So moving on from this, we go to our next match of the night, Cody Rhodes and Malachi Black. And I'll say this, Schlong, since I missed the intro for Malachi in Newark, I was very pleased to see it in Queens last night. Man, that whole thing is so fucking cool. It's so hard for him to be a heel. The crowd is so into it and they want to see him. It just really sucks. But I'll say this. The Smart Mark crowd booing Cody over everything has to stop, man. It's really fucking lame. He's clearly the babyface. Now, I was cheering for Malachi, but I was also cheering for Cody. And I have to say this before we get any further, Schlong. The surprise of the night for me was that Brandy Rhodes came back, and good God, my goodness, does she look fantastic for a woman who had a baby a couple months ago. She looked absolutely great. She looked absolutely great, and it was great to see her back out there. But it still just was the constant booing at Cody Rhodes just is crazy. And I think eventually they're hip to what's going on. Like AEW is listening. I think at some point, clearly he's going to flip heel, and it'll be fine. Go ahead, Schlong. You have something you want to throw out?
I think it's already starting. I think if you watch that match back, he wrestled heel.
Yeah, there's moments where he certainly threw out some heelish stuff, but he definitely did not throw out so much heelish stuff as Malachi Black did. He did attack the knee. That's a very heel move. But when we cut to the finish here, Schlong, it doesn't get much more heel than winning with the black mist to the face.
So I agree there, but while Malachi Black still wrestled heel, Malachi's one of those guys who can wrestle heel and be face because, again, like you said, he's just so cool. People are going to want to cheer for him. That entrance could be so lame done just a little less properly. And since it's done to perfection, it's so fucking cool. Like that's the respect. Like, because just one element changed, and I don't know which element it would be, but just one thing changed, and that entrance is just terrible. We've seen it happen to other guys. That being said, I just think Cody really, I mean, listen, he acknowledged the boos all night. Like every time he would turn the crowd and acknowledge him, which I'm with you. People are booing. Now, some of the boos were because Malachi Black is so over. I do have to at least establish that. But then there is the booing because people, Cody's going to bury him. And we've been over it a bunch on here. Cody's buried no one. He's done nothing but make people. I don't understand where this is fucking coming from. Darby Allin, Brody. Brody's a unique situation. Yeah, he won it back, but there was clearly more going on there. Malachi Black, he just lost twice to him. He MJF, like Cody loses. Cody refuses to go for the title because he lost a match. Like this is he does not win. He fucking loses. This is who Cody is. But I think people just I have a bunch of theories and I'm not going to get into them all. I think there's a little bit of jealousy there, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I think here's this guy who came out of WWE, said he was going to be huge on the indies, and everyone laughed and said, no fucking way. You'll never make it on the indies, And he was huge on the indies. So huge, in fact, that him and these buddies got together and made this company. He's got a beautiful wife. He's like, I think people are like, there's a little bit of jealousy there, I think. Whatever. Sure. That being said, I think they did wrestle. I think I think already they know he's getting booed. He acknowledged it enough. He did some heel stuff. He pushed Arn. No, Arn pushed him. There's just some division there. And the spitting, though. Malachi Black just spitting that stuff. Again, I'm going to hate to say it, but I love the fucking quote from the Distraction podcast because I was watching it today where they said, Cody is a comic book geek, which he has been for years. It's been well acknowledged. And Cody thinks himself Spider-Man. So is this black stuff going to make him Venom now? Is this black stuff going to be this? And I couldn't help but laugh because, you know what, Mike? I agree that Brandy did come out of the heel tunnel, and I actually thought of that, but I was like, also she was a surprise, and he likes to have his people on one side each. So, but I thought of that, and then there's this comment which is also from Joe Evans. Malachi is like the Joker in The Dark Knight. Cody's Harvey Dent. The White Knight that Black beats into sinking into darker, heelish place. That is the story I think we all thought they were telling. I don't know if that's actually the story they told, though, because he kind of just got there. Like, he was like, are you booing me? Fuck you.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Cody, but I think eventually they, he'll go heel. He'll be like, enough of this bullshit. But I think one of the bigger stories that kind of came out of this match is, I mean, Arn Anderson fell off of that ring apron, right? Like he slipped and fell, and I think a lot of us there live thought that he got shoot hurt. He looked like he really got hurt. Go ahead.
Because you're right. In the comments, please, somebody right now, did that make it to TV? I didn't get to watch. Arn Anderson, right before he got knocked off by Cody in that spot, when he was trying to get in position to be knocked off, he fell trying to go around the ring post. did that fall make it onto TV? Because once I saw he was okay, it became hilarious. But in the moment I was with you, I was like, holy shit, is he hurt?
Yeah, a lot of people thought that he was hurt. Joe Evans is saying yes, it did make it to TV. But either way, the big thing coming out there is that Cody kind of collided with him to then knock him off, the apron. Like I am glad that they continued, kind of on that story, because they easily could have been like, he fell off, we're just not going to do that, we're going to bypass that. But the story now that there's possibly an issue between Arn Anderson and Cody, to me reads like that a possible heel turn could be coming sooner rather than later. Because there's that issue, and then Cody's maybe going to be like, well, I don't need you. I've got Brandy, and I'm going to do this on my own. I don't need you. I don't need the Nightmare family, which isn't really a thing right now. So listen, it could be coming. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. All I know is this. I was glad we didn't get another quick squash by Malachi Black. We saw a longer match. They told a great story. Cody attacked the knee. They went after the knee for a while. And then Malachi Black has to win by spitting the black mist into Cody's face and rolling him up for the small package to get the win. And clearly, he knows that he kind of stole one. Joe Evans is saying, by the way, as Arn Anderson inched around the post, you knew it wasn't going to end well. And then you just see the faces of the talent in the ring. Look at what happened. And you know what? If that's all that kind of made it to air, I'm kind of glad, because it looked bad there live. Like, everybody in the crowd, was really concerned. Like, everybody around us was going, oh my God, he's hurt. Like, he's really hurt.
I'm laughing now because I know he's fine, but I wasn't laughing then because I, like you, thought he was hurt. So I just think of the description of, and then you just see the talent looking at what the fuck just happened. It's just like perfect. But back to your point, I like the story because Malachi Black is not big enough to squash everyone in 1 second. He's not that kind of talent. So you need to show that, like, the first time Cody underestimated him, this time he snuck out. But either way, he's the kind who's going to win a match. He'll do what he has to beat you. When he kicked Cody, when he hit at the black mass and Cody fell out of the ring, the desperation at which he chased him was such good selling. Like, he just knew what was happening at that moment. I was like, all right, this is awesome. So I'm with you on that. That match, I actually really liked that match. I'm not gonna lie, I loved the way the story that was told. I'm a Cody Rhodes fan. I have been for a while. I think he tells very good stories in his match, and I tell you that's what wins me over more than anything. I love the story. I loved Brandy's moment of getting in the ring with Malachi and giving her the finger, and then he laughs. Like, there's a whole story being told there that I just love.
The other thing, Schlong, very cool. Malachi Black with the red eye last night. The eye's getting worse.
I'm just like, at one point you're just gonna see like blood seeping down it. I've said this from day one. He just needs to, like, the makeup was kind of coming off last night, but it stayed on half decent. He really needs to call in whoever Danhausen's makeup person is, because Danhausen's makeup never falls off. And it's like, if you're gonna go with that look, like, Darby can have his makeup come off because I think he does that on purpose. Like, it shows the wear and tear of the match and how much he's giving. Malachi's makeup should stay on, so he needs to, I don't know what type it has to be, but fuck it, the red eye looked awesome. The red eye looked fucking cool.
It did. It was a great look. I thought it was a great match. And then we get a video package for the build to Sammy versus Miro into break. After break, we do get Darby Allin and Sting versus FTR. Again, didn't see this on TV. A few things, Schlong, that I thought was cool. FTR wearing that NWO-inspired gear was pretty awesome, especially because of, Sting's history dealing with the NWO and WCW, and eventually becoming part of it, but everybody became part of it. The other thing was, I've been going to wrestling shows for years. I went to WWE stuff a lot back in the day. Never got a chance to see WCW or Impact. So last night for me was the first time I got to see Sting wrestle in the ring. You know, I thought that it was awesome for that alone. You know, now that I got to finally see Sting wrestle, and he is in his 60s and still able to do what he's able to do. I mean, dude, he delivered. The amazing thing was that when he first came into AEW on this show, or the Wednesday night, extra bonus content we had done before the Mark Order podcast, we were talking about the fact that it's awesome that Sting's there, but I don't want to see him wrestle. I don't need to see him wrestle. And now we've seen him wrestle live. We got to see the pre-tape thing, but I'm not a huge fan of pre-tape produced matches. But we got to see him now wrestle a few times live on TV. And I couldn't be happier that it's not just him standing on the apron to come in and do one Stinger Splash, the Scorpion Death Drop, and the Scorpion Death Lock, and then it's over. Like, he is fully involved, and he's looked great. That crossbody he did over Darby Allin was, I was just like, Jesus Christ, like, what are we doing? There's guys who are half of his age who can't pull that off.
Can't do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a lot of fun. That coffin drop onto Wheeler on the ring apron looked insane. We all were just like, Jesus, Darby, take a minute for yourself. And Darby Allin and Sting do win by submission off this Scorpion Deathlock from Sting on Dax Harwood. So, Schlong, what did you think of the match? I loved it. I thought it played out really well in the stadium. Good stories, and Sting looked great.
So, first of all, I'm with you, and seeing Sting live was just an experience because he was my favorite WCW guy of all time. I told you guys that last night in the car. Like, he was the big baby face when I first started watching, and that was all I needed. And then he went into the Crow, so like his run for me watching was always epic. So it was surreal seeing him and wrestle, like you said, really wrestle. I loved the match. I thought this was the first match. Like, and the fans were into the Malachi Black Cody match, like really into it, but they were booing Cody, cheering Malachi. So it was like a weird feeling, but they were loud. This was when I feel like they were fully back in, like fully like, we're cheering as expected, we're booing as expected. We talked about this on the drive back. I thought the whole match, like I leaned over to Kate and I said, FTR has to win, right? Because it's FTR. They need, and I still feel like they got to figure out what they want to do with FTR next. I don't think they're misusing them or anything because they've been in big feuds. They just got to figure out where they go next. That being said, if Sting only wrestles sporadically, but when he wrestles, you treat it that he is still the icon, the elite level Sting, I'm okay that him and Darby win. Because if you're going to tell me that he can't wrestle all the time, otherwise he would fall, but when he does, he is main event level talent, then this makes perfect sense. And it was just fantastic. I thought it was really booked well. I do have to agree with Joe Evans. I am disappointed we got t-shirt wearing Sting. Shirtless Sting must be a pay-per-view only thing. I agree. I was really hoping for a little shirtless Sting action, but maybe he didn't get a tan. We know how that goes. This is just, he's been great for Darby because I don't know what they would be doing with Darby otherwise. And it's kept Darby in some big name feuds while not putting him in like the singles runs where he'd get hurt with these elite storylines and stuff, which I don't think he fits into yet. Which leads into the question I was going to ask, and I'll let Joe, because how much mileage do you think they're going to get out of this Sting Darby pairing? How much more, I should say? Because I was wondering too, like they're going to have to stop him at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all going to depend on kind of what happens, because I think eventually what happens right now with the way they're kind of playing this out, somebody is going to take Sting out, in my opinion, right? Like somebody is going to knock Sting out of action, and Sting's going to go away for a little bit at some point. He's been consistent with them on the road and stuff like that, but at some point Sting's going to need a break. They're going to need to kind of let him cool off for a little bit so that he stays like a special attraction, right? So I think that what'll happen is eventually, and this is just the way I see it play out, somebody will attack Sting, he'll go away, and we'll get Darby Allin just by himself. Maybe he'll be doing things, not for Sting, like attacking people, but, with Sting in mind, like, you've taken out my mentor, whatever you want to call it, and that'll kind of fuel Darby's fire, and I'd be okay with that. But I think that that's eventually how we kind of get Sting out for a little bit and Darby on his own and establishes his own character. I don't think it's hurting Darby to have Sting with him. I don't think it hurts, kind of the level of face that he is or the wrestler that he is or how he's viewed in that company. I think it gives him the ultimate rub. So, this is okay for me. They haven't done anything that I've hated, to be honest, with Sting. While I don't prefer the pre-tape matches and produce stuff, um, that's not my thing. It was fine. It was totally fine the way they did it. And I do see what Joe Evans is saying. What I'm hearing Ant say is that Wyatt Rotunda takes out Sting and feuds with Darby. I'm not saying that, but that's not a bad thought. I actually wasn't really thinking that. But if there is somebody who can take out Sting, it would be Rotunda. I don't think that Rotunda comes in to pair with Malachi Black. I think Rotunda's his own thing. And he's been throwing a lot of teases out there, nothing specifically stating he's going to AEW, but I personally think this is the only place he can go. A lot of people are saying, send him to Impact. I think that this is the place he ends up. He could fit in with Impact, but
I think he's perfect for Impact. I think they need him way more than AEW does because he also has a mind that works really well there. Like, they need someone with his mind who's like, here's all the creative shit I can do
don't
for
disagree.
you.
I don't disagree with that. But I think if you're Rotunda, why do you go to Impact if AEW wants you, right? And
That's a
if you're
view.
AEW and Rotunda's out there, whether you quote unquote need him or not, you take him because of the creativity he can bring you and what he can, maybe help some other guys out with. Am I saying he's going to be like an ultimate mentor to other people if he comes in? He doesn't have to be, but from the way I hear other people talking about their experiences in AEW of people kind of running things by other people and kind of getting opinions on some stuff. I think that he's a perfect guy to bring in to kind of come in and do that. I mean, he does, to Mike Peterson's point, he fits like a glove into Impact. Again, I don't disagree, but when you're talking about the audience that he could be in front of, Impact versus AEW is a no-brainer. I mean, you're in front of the larger audience with AEW. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to Rotunda when he comes up. His no-compete doesn't happen until, I think, the end of October, right around Halloween. So
yeah, right then.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, Schlong, I was in on this match, way in on this match. Can't wait to see it on TV. We did get a video package for Britt versus Ruby Soho, which happens to be the main event. And what's awesome is I don't think any of us thought that would be the main event, and that's not saying anything about the two women who are involved in that match. I just think that everybody automatically thought it was going to be Omega Danielson. So when they open up the show, and it is those two, the only thing you can put there in the main event is the women for the championship, and that's awesome. That they continue to elevate their women on television to the main event. Even the first Rampage, they were the main event, right? They did the Lights Out match on TV as a main event. I mean, it's cool to see them continue to do that. I know that if Kate were here and not locked away in some prison in New York, that she would probably have some sort of snarky comment or, say something about how you still can't trust that women's division. I don't necessarily disagree. I just think it's awesome to see them push them to a main event.
It also to me shows that at least on the championship level of it, it's the same respect in the sense that if you're a champion, if your belt is on the line, that is main event. As long as no other belt is on the line. Like if in this show there was only one belt up, that should be your main event, and that makes sense. Because if you had put this in the middle of the show, you could have put Omega versus Danielson in the main event, and no one would have complained. But then you run the risk of like, where do you put? It'd have to be the opener, I guess. That's the only way you could do it is flip the two of them.
Right.
But because they're the only two respectful shots for a title, you can't put the title in the middle of the show because it'd be disrespectful.
Right.
So I'm with you. I think this was great. I think I'm gonna kind of cut. You can talk about the match a lot, but I just want to ask you a question before we get into the details.
Sure.
So did Ruby's entrance music kind of come out of nowhere for you? Like, I didn't know we were ready for the match to start, and all of a sudden, Ruby Soho's playing, and I feel like the crowd felt the same way. Like it took them a second to get into it, not because there was any issues with it, but because we were coming out of commercial, and then next thing you know, everyone was expecting some kind of cue that this match was about to happen, and it never came. And then all of a sudden, her music hits.
Well, I think what's difficult is because based on the kind of write-ups to the show that I had read, and that I am kind of looking through to get us through this, is that when they came back from commercial, they hyped up the 2-hour Rampage, as well as giving us the fact that we're going to get Miro and Sammy Guevara next week on Dynamite. That did come over the screens, but we clearly can't hear commentary hyping anything up. So I think that's why it felt like it came up out of nowhere, Schlong. But I like the song Ruby Soho, but I don't like the way that they cut her music. I personally think they should recut her music to open the way that the song does, and then somehow edit to have the chorus there after that. You know what I mean? Like, I think that just having that music cut to play the chorus from the start doesn't give you any time to anticipate what's coming, because it pretty much opens with, the first line of the chorus.
Yeah,
right.
I agree. You're right.
I think that if they cut her music up different, it can help lead in, because it's the same thing with oh my God, Cult of Personality, right? Like they don't just cut to the opening line of the song. Like there is a little bit of lead into that. So I think they could give some lead in without having to start, you start the song and just let the song roll. They could cut it up to include some of the opening of that and then kind of launch into the chorus.
I'd have to listen to the whole. I mean, I actually really like that song, but I'd have to listen to it again because I'm with you. There's probably a part of that song, either the beginning or somewhere else, where you could steal it and just put it in place and be like, it only has to be 3 seconds, just something to be like, I have your attention, bam, here we go. Now, sometimes coming out of nowhere works. Like Adam Cole's song works because it pops out of nowhere. I feel like Ruby Soho could benefit from not coming out of nowhere. The song could use a little bit of the.
Yeah. I mean, what I'll say is this: like for Adam Cole, like it kind of opens up out of nowhere because it opens with it's all about the boom, but then you're in the song kind of starts with the actual song Ruby Soho. The opening is the melody of the chorus, so. Like they play the melody of the chorus like 2 times as the intro of that song, and then they go into the first verse, which doesn't sound like the chorus, and then they launch into the chorus after the first verse, right? Like that's the makeup of the song. So just to me, that's why I'm saying like cut it so that it plays the intro, like, and it's only like once or twice that melody plays, and then you can absolutely cut those two together, the intro into the chorus, and I think it would make sense. Maybe you know what, Schlong? Maybe I'll try to do that this week. Maybe I'll do a little bit of music editing and show you what it would sound like. But by the way, that album, by the way, and Out Came the Wolves, fantastic. It's not one that's always in my rotation, but that back in the day, that was an little Aunt Money's rotation. I got a lot of spins on my boom box.
I just played the first couple seconds because I could hear you playing on your boombox with the album, which I'm with you. I actually really enjoyed. There's a couple, for lack of a better term, bangers on that. But you're right. No, I heard the beginning of that song. You're 100% right. It
I'm gonna
worked
cut it
for
together.
her. It worked for her all out because people were chanting and they were ready, so you could go right into the chorus and it nailed. But for coming out now, I'm with you, and I still think, I mean, it has to be that song. It's so perfect, it's so amazing, and when the fans are singing along, it's so cool. But that 3 seconds would just, make the whole whatever time, what I'm saying, that lead in would make it much better. You're right. So we can get back to that. Sorry.
Yeah, no worry. As we get into the match now, right? Listen, I think that I think that it was a fine match, and I think that it eventually found its pacing and wound up being a good match. But I did not enjoy it through the first portion of this match. It looked like there were a few sequences that they weren't on the same page for, that looked really awkward to me. And yes, Mike Peterson, Maxwell Murder is the GOAT song. It's fantastic.
I just had to, because we're talking about
No,
it.
it's all good. I just, they didn't look like they were on the same page to me, Schlong, live in the venue. They didn't look like they were on the same page for quite a few things at the start, and then eventually they found their pacing and got there. I like Ruby a lot. I didn't really like a lot of the stuff she did in the WWE, but I think it was the use, right? I think it was how they decided to use her. I'm still not 100% sold on Britt Baker.
Braun Breaker over here, Britt Breaker.
Oh my God, we were talking about Braun Breaker, so that's why it creeps into my brain. Britt Baker. I'm not 100% sold on Britt Baker. I do think that this match being a little bit slower paced, with segments that picked up speed and then slowed back down, plays into her strengths because she doesn't gas out. I feel like in the past she gasses out and she runs out of steam, so that didn't happen here. But I still just do think there are some things sometimes that I don't know if she's not great at, or if it's just not built to her strengths, that don't look great. I'm not 100% in on that. I love her character. Personally, I think she could have dropped the belt last night and it wouldn't have hurt her, but I don't mind her hanging on to the belt. A lot of people are saying now, well, this is going to give us Thunder Rosa. I don't think so. I think Thunder Rosa, from everything I'm seeing, Schlong, they're pointing to 2022 is when they're going to start pulling the trigger on that storyline to get us to eventually Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa. And I think Thunder Rosa is the one who takes the belt from her, but I don't think we're close to that yet. But regardless, just kind of sticking to this match, Schlong, what did you think about the match? And again, we were there, so I didn't, I haven't watched it on TV to see the angles and all that kind of stuff. I'm really just talking about our perspective in our seats. But I still it seemed disjointed at parts to me. Is that how you took it?
So, couple things. Yes, at first, I do think they started slow. They were like not just slow in the sense of slow match. Like I think they had some miscommunication at first. I think it picked up in they got on the same page. I ended up really liking the match, but I think it took. I mean, because the last thing you remember, because I judge matches basically on the last however few minutes I remember of the match, I ended up liking it because they did find a groove. The start was very rough. I think I'm all in on Britt. I get what you're saying. Her matches can be kind of iffy. I think she tells good stories in the ring, which again, I care more about than like the hardcore ring work. Her character is so fantastic. I'm with you. She could have lost, it wouldn't hurt, but keeping it's great too. So I think she's the best champion they could have. I'm just as in on Ruby Soho at this point. She's such a natural babyface. She was that in this match. like I said, at first, I don't know if it's because they hadn't wrestled before. I don't know if it's because they were nervous. I don't know if it's just because you see that sometimes with everyone. I mean, I think Griff Garrison and MJF had a little bit, not Griff Garrison, Brian Pillman and MJF had a little bit of that where they weren't on the same page. It happens, but Ruby and Britt did eventually get on the same page. And once they did, I thought the match was really good. And I thought the story they were telling was really good. I think the downside was, I actually don't want to say downside because about 3/4 of the way through the match, I actually thought at that point Ruby may be able to win this, which is to me the best thing because I didn't think beforehand she stood any chance. About 3/4 of the way in, I'm like, holy shit, they're really like I wasn't convinced she was winning, but I was like, I could see it the way they're booking this, and there's plenty of places they could go with this, and she looked awesome, and I think she's spectacular. I love she's gonna be great for this women's division. I have more I want to talk about when we're talking about Thunder Rosa. I want to save that for news and notes because there's something that relates to that, and I have theories now. But in terms of this match, I think it was a good main event. It definitely did start slow, but I think it picked up speed, and I think speed in the terms of quality, not necessarily pace, because Kate says it all the time, and she's not wrong. She was saying it to you guys last night. I think I heard her say, when Britt goes slower, she has a better match, and she does. When she is talent who's willing to slow down with her. I think it's also tough, though, because you look at Britt's most times the bigger of the two in the ring. Like, she's a tall woman. So I think sometimes, like, we don't realize that. But, like, Ruby's short. Statlander's not short, but she's a lot of her lanky. So we'll see. I going off on a tangent, but I just really enjoyed it. I left. The show ended, and I was like, oh, I really love that main event. And that's how I felt at the moment. So I don't think I'm going to change that just because of I rewatch it. But I do agree with you. In the beginning, I was like, if this keeps up, this is going to be really ugly. And then I don't know, I forget which point it was, but they did something, and it was like, okay, now we're on the same page.
Yeah, they did come together like, a third of the way through, I'd say, that match, which definitely helped, end things out better than the way they started. Again, I didn't think it was terrible. I wasn't totally in on it only because of the way it started, and then eventually they kind of won me back over. But still, like I said, I can't tell if it's shortcomings on Britt, where sometimes it just seems like in her matches there are some of those kind of missteps. It's like almost like, who's leading this dance. But she tells good stories, and we didn't actually mention it, Schlong, but Britt Baker did retain her title with submission from the Lockjaw. And I will say this, Schlong, you didn't put me in the Lockjaw like you said you would in Queens.
I forgot. Damn it. We were too busy having a good time. I didn't want to break anyone's jaw.
And I didn't want to fucking bite your finger off and leave you with 4 fingers.
It all depends on where we start the Lockjaw. That's how it works.
I'll gnaw a finger off. Either way,
if I have to pull it apart, it won't work. But
either way, that's the show. No shenanigans after that match. It just ends. No challengers coming up next for that belt.
I loved that, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that. And I also didn't have a problem that we really didn't get any surprises. A lot of people thought there were different surprises. Listen, I had a theory that maybe Bret Hart was going to show up because of what they announced with the Owen Hart Foundation. Like, we were all over the place. But you want to know what? We didn't need any of that because this show was seriously strong enough to hold on its own. And we did then get to see Rampage. We're not going to talk about it because we're not going to spoil anything here, but we'll run down the card for you pretty quick just so you have an idea of what's on the Grand Slam edition of Rampage. It's 2 hours this Friday night. You'll get CM Punk against Powerhouse Hobbs, the Super Click, Adam Cole, Bebe, and the Young Bucks versus Christian Cage and Jurassic Express. The Men of the Year, Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page versus Chris Jericho and Jake Hager. Sammy Guevara also makes an appearance on Rampage. The Lucha Brothers, Santana and Ortiz, go against the Butcher, the Blade, and Private Party in an 8-man tag. We also get Penelope Ford versus Anna Jay. I don't think that we knew that was coming, but we definitely got it. And then our main event is Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston against Minoru Suzuki and Lance Archer. And what we didn't know going into, or what I didn't know until like the day before Schlong, was that they turned it into a lights out anything goes match. Just watch.
I'm not spoiling anything. Just watch.
Watch Rampage. It actually was a really good episode of Rampage. And it was awesome that we got to witness it live. So we'll talk about it next week. We're going to move on to some news and notes before we wrap things up, Schlong. So before we get into some of the other stuff, I want to bring up a few Brian Danielson. I'll tell you why. It's because the news that I have pulled up refers to him as DB, not BD.
Always on us about it, but then you went and did it.
Oh, shut your mouth. It should be noted, I think it's super classy the way the Dragon has handled everything since signing and debuting in AEW. I mentioned it before in the media scrum. Immediately following his debut, he had nothing bad to say about the WWE. To this date, he's had nothing bad to say about the WWE. And ahead of his debut last night, he wrote an article for the Players Tribune entitled "Thank You WWE," there were a couple things that he said in there that I want to call out that I thought were it was pretty classy. Did you read the whole thing, Schlong? Did you have a chance to read it?
I did. I really liked it. I thought it was such a well-written piece.
It was fantastic. And like I said, really classy. Here's a couple things that the Dragon said. He specifically thanked Vince McMahon. He said, "Thank you to the big man who I know hates to be acknowledged. I won't say much, but thank you for the conversations, the life lessons about both what to do and what not to do, and the best hug I've ever received. I wish more people could see you how I see you." And then he also went on to list some favorite WWE moments that included an anecdote about his late father. He said, "Thank you for hijacking the show in Seattle. The last time my dad ever got to see me wrestle, he signed his first autograph that night. Buddy Danielson, Daniel Bryan's dad." Very classy. I suggest that if you didn't see it, or if you didn't take the time to read it, seek it out in the Players Tribune. It really does just show you what a classy guy the Dragon is.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I don't get in on these wars between companies. I don't care. Like what you like, love what you love. But he clearly didn't see it the same way some other guys did, and that's okay. Everyone has a different experience everywhere. I guarantee everyone's worked at a job where they saw it differently than their coworkers. So he had a good relationship, and in fairness, they were protective of him. And that's not a negative thing. That's a positive. Like clearly he was looked out for. So I thought it was really classy to go ahead and do that, and he's been very respectful of them.
Yeah, and to your point too, Schlong, like I don't have a problem with anybody wanting to speak ill or take shots. Listen, Punk has been very open about his experiences, and they were negative for him, and he speaks about it. And some of the other guys who've come over who had a chip on their shoulder about the way they were used. I'm okay if you want to do that, but that's not the Dragon's experience. That wasn't even Adam Cole's experience. Adam Cole also had nothing but good things to say about his time in the E and the way that they treated him as he decided to move on. And the offer that they made him, he didn't give details, but he said that they made me a very good offer, and it came down to preference for him. So just really classy. Danielson is not the type of guy, you don't ever get the sense that he's the type of guy who's going to take shots or talk shit. Sure, he might say some of those things in the ring, but, I don't think that that's really who he is at heart. And you can tell by what he wrote in the Players Tribune. So definitely go seek it out. A fantastic piece. The other thing in American Dragon news is that in an interview with Barstool Wrestling, He said he told Kevin Dunn he wouldn't use the yes chant in AEW. So I know there were some questions when he first came in about using the yes. I guess it sounds like he is not going to be using the yes. The fans are doing it, so that's a whole different thing. You can't stop the fans from doing it. It's what they knew from him for the last however many years, right? But it looks like BD's not going to use it. So that's just a little takeaway for you. Now, here's the other thing, Schlong, that made the wire this week in Dragon News is he offered a little bit up about his new theme song, Born for Greatness by Elliot Taylor. And he did talk a little bit about the final countdown. So here's what he had to say. He said, Tony and I talked about a couple things. We talked about the final countdown, but that was way too expensive. I hate talking business stuff when I don't know exactly what it was, but it wasn't just the amount of money. They would only let AEW play it like 20 times a year or something like that. For several $100,000, you can play the final countdown 20 times a year. That doesn't work for us. And then he went on to kind of speak about his new song and say that he wanted something a bit different and reached out to his friend Elliot Taylor and said, here's an idea, but I don't know if it's any good. Could you do something like this? He dropped everything. I think he's done 72 hours in the studio and made the song that I come out to now, which I think he's also going to do a full-length release because it actually has like 2 chorus lyrics. He said, I really, really liked it. Also, it incorporates the chant that people would do when I was in the independents. I kind of wanted to get it in there. I would love for people to start chanting it again. So there you have it. I guess he wants people to do a little less yesing and a little more you're going to get your fucking head kicked in. And I'm okay with that.
And they were doing it, so
absolutely.
they were chanting. I will say, you're actually, if this is the only news you're giving me of Daniel Bryan, you're neglecting the biggest story of the week.
Oh, what's that, Schlong? Go ahead.
You can. I forget where I don't want to misquote where he said it, but I believe he said because he's a vegan and he eats apples and things like this. No, he's not killing plants. What really is happening is, if you think about it, he's eating tree sperm.
That's right.
So everyone be aware, when he eats fruit, he's eating tree sperm. So are you when you eat fruit. So I think we should all know that Daniel Bryan will kick your fucking head in and then go eat some tree sperm. These are important things we need to know. Fucking favorite quote of all time.
Man, that guy's out of his mind and he can wrestle really well. So there's all of your Dragon news for the week. Moving on to a couple other things. We have 2 more things for you. Schlong, it sounds like there's going to be a new championship coming to AEW. Apparently, according to Matt Men's Andrew Zarian, there was a rumor mill item going around yesterday that he indicated that AEW will soon introduce a new championship belt. And then the new title, he said, will also be called the TBS Championship. It would be a secondary title for the women's division. There was no specific timetables provided for the debut of that championship. Their 2 weekly TV shows, Dynamite and Rampage, are going to be moving around a little bit. Actually, we do have another piece of news on that. But Schlong, it looks like what people thought we were going to get from the women's division, I think next, people thought maybe we'd get tag belts. Looks like they're going to put a secondary singles belt in the women's division. What do you think?
So I never thought of this, but I fucking love it, because we're talking about who's next for Britt, and we're talking about Thunder Rosa, and we're talking. And last night we were trying to figure out lineup. Who do you put up against Britt that's not going to win? And all. If you have a secondary belt, you can give that to Thunder Rosa. That keeps them apart. That does, it doesn't hurt her. There's no kind of like Miro TNT, like as good but just different. I think it allows for more stories. I think it allows for more competitors for both titles, because you can float one between the other. And if you're not ready for one in this division, they can be ready for this. I think it's a great idea. I think it's how you protect some of your top level stars without having them. I think it's how you protect someone like Thunder Rosa without having her go for Britt Baker yet. Will you give her the TBS title or Jade Cargill, who I don't think is quite ready for it, but if she, at the same point, fuck it. I mean, she's on my TV more. I'm not going to complain. So whatever they want to do, I think it's a great idea. I still want tag titles, but clearly this would keep them probably far away, but I love it. I love the idea.
Now, let me tell you why I actually like this idea. And there are people out there saying, like, oh boy, like, another women's title, like, they'd barely do anything with the women now. Well, if you ask me, Schlong, if you give the women a secondary title, maybe this is a catalyst to give more time to the women on television, because you're not going to demote your belt, to things happening off television all the time. It has to get some more airplay. That's the hope. Is that maybe now you get more visibility for your world champion on television and now your secondary champion on television. Could it mean that one cannibalizes the time of the other? Of course. That could be what it means. I'm hoping that it means that you wouldn't just relegate it to YouTube, but this title would mean something and you'd have to put it in front of the people.
Well, I mean, I also think because it's TBS Championship, it very much is going to be on TV because it's a TV channel title. They wouldn't put the TNT title on YouTube because it's TNT. So I think, you don't put the channel's name on it and then put it on YouTube because you're going to piss off the channel. You want to, let their thing be out there. So I think like I said, I'm with you. I don't think it cannibalizes. I think it spreads the stories out. I think the problem the division has, the lack of stories. Obviously, if Kate was here, she could go more into that, but there is lack of stories. But there's also, you have a lot of very high top talent. Not a lot, but you have Britt, you have Thunder Rosa, you have, I'm going to blank, you have Ruby Soho, you have even Jade, you have these talents, Tay Conte, Anna Jay, and you have them and you're like, okay. And then you don't really have, they need to fill out more of the mid card and the lower. I think another belt actually helps them do that because you can have more. You can split up your top talents and have them going after different belts, and then you have the mid cards and lowers come up and compete with them. Like I think it actually could do a lot of good things. I'm very excited for this if it comes true. I wanted women's tags, and I still do, but I'm seeing so many possibilities for this.
I think it's a positive. I truly think it's a positive in theory. Now, obviously, we've said that before about some of the things they've done with the women, like the tag tournament, or not the tag tournament. Sorry, the championship tournament that they did in quarantine and stuff like that, and it didn't all pan out. But again, I'll take this as a hopeful sign, and let's see where they go with it.
The last month, 2 months, we'll say 2 months, have been some of the most consistent booking for the women's division. They have 2 feuds going on at every time. They're highlighting a bunch of different women. I know it was on Elevation Dark, but you had the Big Swole, Diamante feud. You brought in one of their biggest free agent signings that they have propped up a lot was a woman. So they have been making strides there. They have to do more, but I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt only because I could see them working, and hopefully that they see this and go, this is how we build more into it. And if they do that, I will be ecstatic.
Yeah, well, we'll see, Schlong, because the other thing that kind of ties into that is that the news came out today that the move to TBS has a date. It looks like AEW is going to be moving, according to Variety. They're going to be moving Dynamite to TBS, as they said they were going to. But Rampage is going to remain on TNT. What I saw says that the Pro Wrestling Promotions flagship weekly TV series, Dynamite, will move from TNT to TBS on January 5th, 2022. Now, I think originally they said it was going to happen earlier. But until January 5th, 2022, new episodes will continue to air weekly on TNT Wednesdays at 8 p.m. The recently launched sister show Rampage will remain on TNT instead of moving to TBS as they initially planned. Rampage did debut on TNT on August 13th and airs weekly on Fridays at 10 p.m. AEW has proven to be a strong ratings draw for the Turner networks, with Dynamite ranking as the number one show on cable and key adults 18 to 49 for the past 4 Wednesdays in a row. Ratings data for the most recent episode of Dynamite that aired on September 22nd was not available at the time of this publishing, but the show did barely edge out WWE's Monday Night Raw in the key demo last week. Dynamite finished its 2-hour broadcast with a .44 rating in the demo, while 3-hour Raw did a .43. Now, I believe, Schlong, it was flipped this week. I think I saw in the ratings today that Raw actually did a .44 and Dynamite did a .43. But I think I saw the overall ratings for Dynamite this week was maybe 1.4 million, a little up from last week, which I think was like 1.3. Or was that reversed? Maybe I'm not remembering it. We don't talk the ratings a ton here. We just kind of mention them in passing. But either way, Schlong, you don't even have to worry about looking it up, to be honest, because I think the whole point of this is that Turner, I think, is ecstatic with the fact that they're getting the ratings that they're getting. And I actually like this plan more than I had liked what they initially laid out. I think they kind of initially floated out the fact that they were going to make the move somewhere in the fall. And I think that can be confusing, right? Like when you say like, hey, we're going to do it at the start of the new year, like then you get people in the mode of, okay, it's move now. And moving
new
forward,
year, new channel.
Right. It's going to be there. So I don't mind this move. And to be honest, let Rampage stay on TNT. If you're Turner, split up the ratings.
So I know we don't talk ratings. I happened to pull it up. It was 1.28. But the only reason I even stuck with it was AEW was the number one cable and number one on cable and beat number 2 by 24%. I don't care about, again, we don't talk about ratings a lot because we don't care. We're not ad execs. The only thing I care about is that they get good ratings because it means they'll stay on my TV. So I care more about that. Like if they're doing the number one in their night, it means that Turner's gonna be like, yes, stay like on one of our channels. Because that's all I care about is that I can continue to watch it at this level. So, and I think Rampage staying on TNT speaks well of Rampage, that they're like, hey, you're doing real good numbers. I mean, they're probably going to come down a little bit over time just because it is Friday at 10. It is tough. But they're probably still like, even if you come down, you're still doing really good numbers for Friday at 10. Stay here. We're happy. Like that's the best news I could hear.
Yeah, I think it's very important to note that like the Friday night ratings aren't super high. Like I don't remember what the numbers are, but those Friday night ratings aren't high.
Like
but for a Friday night,
650.
But you'll take that for Friday night at 10 p.m., right? Like that's more than you would get if you're re-airing, Matrix Revolution at 10 p.m. on a Friday.
And people, even if, okay, at 10 p.m. on a Friday, this channel's getting 650 people too, 1,000 people. I doubt they're watching as intently as the 650,000 people watching Rampage. So when you go to advertisers, they go, well, this is a live, it's taped. So we know if someone's watching this, they're really focused on it. Like people watch this because they're really into it.
It's also, whether it's live or not, it's new programming. It's not rerun syndicated stuff. Yeah. So either way, now you have a few dates to put on your calendar and be prepared for the move. So January 5th, 2022, be prepared to turn your dial one channel up or like 2 channels. I think on my cable provider, it's like a 3-channel difference. I think I go to 37 to 39. So a 2-channel difference.
825 to 826. So I go 1.
Yeah, 1 channel. So it's not a far jump. Schlong, did you have any other news or notes or anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we're good. I think we covered a lot. I just want to say it was a lot of fun this week. Everyone should go to an AEW show. I will tell the people only because I guess I've become associated with Dark and Elevation. Ant and I have been starting our conversations that we'll be picking up at some point, especially now with StreamYard. It makes it a lot easier. We can do a lot more different things than we could before. So look for that coming out, because I do enjoy that still. I watch every one of them. As you can see when I live tweet, it hasn't stopped. So no, that's about it. No other news and notes. Follow me at Mark Order Pod on Twitter, because that's the only Twitter I use. And that's really it. I have no socials to anything else to plug.
Well, you kind of did half the job there, Schlong. Definitely follow us at Mark Order Pod on all social accounts. We're super active, as Schlong said, on Twitter. Schlong has been continuing, even though we're not covering it here because we have so much other stuff to cover now. Schlong live tweets along with Dark Elevation and Dark every week. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm not on there doing it, but I can definitely see all the interactions, and people are talking and chatting about the talent, and finding some new kind of fun independent wrestlers out on the scene who are getting a little bit of airtime thanks to Dark Elevation and Dark. Joe Evans, I'm sorry. He did have one other news and note. I forgot to bring this up. Full Gear is rumored to be moving to Minneapolis. It's not fully confirmed yet, but I believe from what I was seeing about sales for Rampage, like the night before, it's going to be in Minneapolis. So very good chance that you're going to get Full Gear in Minneapolis. Stay tuned. Keep looking out for that. Anyway, as I was saying, so Schlong is doing an awesome job tweeting Dark Elevation and Dark every Monday and Tuesday. And Schlong and I are talking about bringing back a live kind of show for us to just recap Elevation and Dark, kind of on one of the nights during the week. So we will obviously keep y'all updated there. We're trying to kind of get all our ducks in a row, and then we're going to bring you some additional content for Dark that way. So stay tuned on that. As I said, follow us on the socials: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. If you could subscribe to us on YouTube, since we're broadcasting there every week now, a lot of people are chatting to us through YouTube, and it's really fun to watch us on a video format. But if you don't catch us on a video format, thank you for listening to us in podcast form. On a programming note, we'll be back live next week on Wednesday night at our normal time at 10:15. Following Dynamite, since we won't be at the event coming this week. I did it before, but if you would like to get your Mark Order podcast stickers, just DM us on our social. We will send stickers seriously anywhere. So if you're listening somewhere like our buddy Kratzo, overseas, we'll send you some stickers. Just reach out. We send them to Canada, all over the United States. You don't have to do anything but tell us where to send them. We'll take care of the rest. So make sure you reach out to do that. Other than that, Schlong, I don't have anything else to say. I don't have the Kenny by God Omega sound effect. You want to do the honors, Schlong?
God, no, I'd butcher that. So I'm just going to say, so Schlong and good night.
Oh, no, we're not going out like that. We'll be back next week. Thank you all for listening and for supporting us. We truly love doing this. And we have a lot more fun stuff on the horizon. So continue to stick with us. And we'll see you next week. Hopefully, if Matt decides to come back to New Jersey, maybe he's done chopping up cars in Queens. And hopefully, Schlong, Kate gets out on good behavior. So we'll see. Tune in next week and find out, right? Well, she's got a terrible attitude, and we all know it, but keep your fingers crossed. Thanks again, everybody. We love you out there. Stay safe, be cool, and we will see you next week.
This concludes the Mark Order podcast. We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming. Join the Mark Order.